And in Surrey, the A24's closed northbound for miles from the Clarks Green roundabout near Ockley all the way to junction 9 of the M25 at Leatherhead after a diesel spill yesterday. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
The Royal Academy's annual exhibition has returned for the 256th time to Brighton the summer holidays. It's the world's oldest open submission exhibition. Anyone can enter work to be considered for inclusion. I'm joined now by art critic J.J. Charlesworth for his verdict. What is your verdict?
My verdict is you should go and see it. You are confronted with many things of varying quality, selected by artists, and you very much, instead of being given something to you that's supposed to be good, you have to make your own decision.
I went along yesterday, and I personally did see some pictures on the wall that I thought were absolutely stunning. I'm going to mention Peter Ucker, which I think is a remark. And now these are the two by Ben Jonson, Grundtvig 1, and we've got one coming out of Berlin Pool. I think that's an absolutely stunning piece of work. And then Claire Douglas should be up. Here we are, Claire Douglas.
Yes.
Souvenir from the Anthropocene.
Yeah.
That last one, actually, a very witty painting.
A piece like that was really interesting. I think it caught a lot of people's eye because it had very kind of humorous, slightly bleak take on post-Brexit Britain. It's set in this fictitious world of Brummington, which is a sort of loose satire on Birmingham. I thought it was a bit mean.
I think we had maybe Black Lives Matter. We had Boris Johnson. I think our own Jacob Rees-Mogg made his way into the painting.
Yeah, so there's definitely a slant, a political slant, on the part of the artist. But even that said, I thought it was an interesting and enjoyable work, even though maybe you don't agree with the artist on what they're trying to say. And I think that actually made for an interesting moment because you're seeing that people are disagreeing, right? Both through the artwork and in front of artworks.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Wednesday, the 10th of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Nana Akua.
So, breaking news, a manhunt is underway. Police are searching for a 26-year-old Carl Clifford after 3 women from the same family were murdered at a property in Hertfordshire last night. We will bring you the latest.
And strategic defence review as the Prime Minister has arrived in Washington for the first NATO, for the 70th anniversary of NATO. He commits to a review of defence, but no extra money so far.
Suella Braverman blasts Liberal Tories. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman says the Progress flag, an updated version of the Pride flag, flew over government buildings as if they were occupying territory. Take a listen.
Well, the Progress flag says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
And the swearing in of MPs in the House of Lords continues today. Some people say we should ditch the pomp and pageantry and just get them in and get on with the job. What do you think?
I'm ready for the 3 Lions to roar. England take on the Netherlands tonight in the Euro 2024 semi-final. Spain awaits the winner in the finals. So can England do it? Jack Carson is in Dortmund.
Well, Gareth Southgate's got a defensive headache of his own ahead of tonight's semi-final against the Netherlands. But as you can see from the sea of orange behind me, the Dutch invasion of Dortmund has already begun.
England, do you think they're going to win?
Yeah, got to be optimistic. I don't know anything about the football. I know we haven't played very well, but all that matters is winning.
But why do
they
put us through the ringer every time, though?
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
But look, we won on penalties last time, and if we can do that, we can do anything, surely.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I won't be able to watch the match, but I'll have my ear to it. Are you watching it?
I've got to watch it, obviously.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get another no-look. Actually, no, I don't hope for another no-look penalty because it means then we'll go into penalties. But yes...
Did he really not look?
He didn't look. And so what happens is the goalie then doesn't know where he's going to go, and then he just goes like that with the ball.
That's quite good. That takes some
confidence.
Yeah.
Crazy. I mean, if it hadn't worked...
Can I tell you, even if I'd looked, I'd miss.
Well, listen, send us your comments at gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your latest news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 9:30, and we'll start with that breaking news that we've been hearing this morning, coming to us from Hertfordshire, where there is now an urgent manhunt underway for a 26-year-old man who's wanted in connection with a triple murder. Officers are now asking the public not to approach Carl Clifford, who may still be armed, they say, and they're asking people to contact police immediately if they do see him. It's after police found 3 women believed to be related fatally injured at a property in Bushy just before 7 o'clock last night. Detectives leading that search are urging anyone with information to come forward on the Hertfordshire Police website or by calling 101, and we will keep across that story for you throughout the rest of this morning. Well, in other news today, 2 children aged 5 and 6 have died amid an infection outbreak at a Liverpool primary school. Milstead Primary School, which caters for those with special educational needs, is currently dealing with an outbreak of Giardia, a stomach infection. It's being overseen by the UK Health Security Agency. And we understand that the head teacher of that school has said that the entire community is devastated by the deaths of those 2 youngsters who the head teacher said filled the classes with joy. In other news, the Prime Minister's refused to guarantee the government will meet his promise to spend 2.5% of national income on defence within his first term. He says it will only happen when it can be done within the rules he set on spending and borrowing. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer's in Washington for a NATO summit to mark 75 years of the military alliance. Ukraine is high up on the agenda, with more aid already promised. The Ukrainian president, though, won't be joining while the fighting continues. But leaders will be agreeing a statement promising Ukraine an irreversible path towards membership to NATO. A study has found that the sugar tax imposed on fizzy drinks has led to a significant drop in sugar in people's diets. It came into force in April 2018 and was designed to encourage manufacturers to change the ingredients in their products. 12 months later, children were found to be consuming nearly 5 grams less sugar per day, while for adults it was 11 grams less. And the build-up is beginning for thousands of England fans descending on Dortmund in Germany today. The squad are facing the Netherlands this evening in the second semi-final of Euro 2024. Manager Gareth Southgate's admitted his team haven't been at their best, but that they have managed to, he says, pull through. And the winners of tonight's match will take on Spain in the final on Sunday. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Anna Aquia is in for Bev Turner.
Now, kicking things off, Sir Keir Starmer has arrived in Washington for his first NATO summit, where he will meet world leaders for the alliance's 75th anniversary.
The Prime Minister says he's committed to increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP, but only after a review into the country's military capabilities. And he won't say when he's going to spend that money and how long the review will take. Some suggestions it could take a year. So has he got what it takes, do you think, to be a statesman on the international stage? Nana, what do you think?
Well, do you know,
it's early days.
It's early days, but nobody likes somebody who says something and then does another. And for me, it's still slightly ringing in my ears when he did his first ever press conference and didn't include GB News in the sort of taking of a question. And I actions speak louder than words. He's also calling out for those people to pay more towards NATO, yet he's not going to commit how much he's spending, which is a bit...
Yeah, and we're currently spending about 2.3% of GDP. Tories said they'd put it up to 2.5% if they won the election straight away. He says Labour will, but won't say when.
And after a review, you know, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look, you know... It's early days. Hopefully he'll be a good statesperson. That's what we want for the entire country. I'm not like one of the Brexiteers, one of the anti-Brexit people who didn't get what they wanted and scuppering everything. I'm prepared to go along with it.
Yeah, I think, look, he looks the part.
Yeah.
He looks and sounds like a Prime Minister, and I think he's got a very irritating voice, but you can't hold that against him. But the defence issue will be interesting because, of course, he'll be talking to Joe Biden when he's out there. How is Joe Biden going to do? That's going to be a really big
Joe
test.
Biden's not really there, is he? Joe
I
Biden,
know.
come on.
But, I mean, NATO pick up most of the bills. They're hosting it in Washington, and then Biden is doing a solo press conference later, which could be critical to whether he carries on as a Democratic candidate.
Yeah, well, there's comments that Parkinson's doctor has been seeing him once a month or something. I mean, is he... I don't know, but there's obviously something they're not telling us about Joe Biden. But
Which is a scandal, actually.
It is.
The Democrats have covered up the full extent of the decline of his cognitive powers. That is scandalous, because he's got this finger over the button.
But I don't.
And if he can't do the job, he should be out.
But I don't see how you can call this a cover-up. I mean, I could see clearly that he was not capable. But moving on to things at home here, former Labour advisor Stella Chantakedu joins us with... did I get it right?
Almost there, Nana.
What? OK, let's talk his style. When do you think that he's going to pledge more money for our armed forces?
Well, he said that next week he's going to set up the roadmap. He has also previously said that the review of the UK's military capabilities is going to take the rest of the year. So I think that we will know a lot more next week. Sorry, he has made it very clear. Look, the voters who voted for the Labour Party, they do not want to see tons of money being funneled into a war and not into our public services. But at the same time, we know that around 85% of British voters, the UK supporting Ukraine winning in this war, Russia not winning, is an important issue. So people realise that it's no longer just a choice between, you either support this war or you support social services. This is no longer an academic exercise. We have some very hard decisions to make, and it is the future of the European Union and our security.
But he's
at stake.
The thing is that he's not leader of the opposition anymore. So what he says matters, and what he does matters. So on the front of The Guardian today, the former First Sea Lord Alan West, Lord West, who was a Labour peer, was a defence minister in Gordon Brown's government, said it's not good enough. When the situation allows, it's not really good enough. We ought to be able to say when we're going to get to 2.5%.
And hopefully there will be an answer to that next week. I think they're going
to hide behind this strategic review, which the Defence Minister was saying earlier. Luke Pollard said will take up to a year. Why a year?
But a lot of people would say, look, they've just started. They want to see what the finances are going to be like. They want to set the first budget. They want to set their priorities.
They know what the finances are. This is the biggest myth going. The books are all published. The IFS, the Institute of Physical Studies, they've got all the books. It's all published. This is a nonsense that they have to wait and see the full scale.
There are some things that they wouldn't have known.
Very little.
No.
Very little.
And everyone knows, in the current circumstances, everyone knows that across the departments of the government, there are gaping holes. Everyone knows that.
Right. Well, if everyone knows, that means Stella Creasy knows. So why have we got to wait a year for a defence review?
This is typical of Labour. I mean, when they're in opposition, they fail to answer questions, and it feels like another exercise of obfuscation, not coming to the point when they have information. They need to, he is now leading the country. He is in charge. So he can't be doing that, and he can't be doing it for too long either. He needs to be specific, especially now he's going to see world leaders.
Yeah, I think the NATO is a very good opportunity for Keir Starmer, now that he has been elected on this overwhelming majority, to provide stable leadership for liberal Western nations and to stand in unity with all the other leaders, especially when you mentioned Joe Biden and what's going on in the UK, in the US. Zelensky is worried that Donald Trump is not going to support Ukraine if he gets elected, and we saw what's happening with Joe Biden. There is a good chance that Donald Trump will be the next US Prime Minister. So Keir Starmer and the United Kingdom is likely going to play a very, very important role on the international stage.
What of the Labour Party itself? Because, look, he's got a huge majority, of course, but big majorities can create a lot of trouble.
Of course.
Because people can afford to rebel. They can afford to be difficult. And there will be quite a lot of people on the Labour left who think, no more money on defence. We want the money to close down food banks. That is a pressure he's going to struggle how to square that circle, if you like.
Quite the opposite, actually, because from the new Labour seats, I think there are around 200 Labour seats where reform was second place. So I think that supporting the war, supporting Ukraine and defence and being strong on defence is somewhere where Labour has the upper hand over Reform and Nigel Farage, exactly because of the comments that Nigel Farage made during the election campaign.
Which were taken completely out of context, I might add. I mean, they weren't they?
He's sceptical.
He only said what he was saying even before he was leading Reform in the way he is.
Sure, but for a very long time, even before that, as you said, Nigel Farage has shown that he's suspicious of NATO and the Western alliance, and that he has diverging views about Russia and Putin than other liberal leaders.
What he said was what a lot of people were saying when the war began, that people were encroaching on. NATO was encroaching towards Putin, and so Putin would do, you know, this is why he's attacking. And I remember myself specifically saying, it's actually, you know, this is a sovereign country that should have its own rights. And people were saying that even before. Lots of people.
The voters will be asking themselves, do I trust someone who's made the comments Nigel Farage made to stand strong against Russia and Putin, or do I trust Keir Starmer, who has put concerted effort into showing that Labour is serious about defence?
In what way? In what way? How has he shown that they're serious about defence? He's not going to commit 100%.
He has committed that he will increase it. He just hasn't specified when this is going to happen.
Not even committing to increasing the troops. I mean, that's a simple, easy one.
It's not because there is a review of the review of the UK military capacity, which needed to have happened a long time ago, and it's not only now happening. There are very, very big deficiencies in our military. There is a lot of things that need to be updated. There is a lot of productivity that could be squeezed out. We're wasting a lot of money.
But also we're wasting a lot of time, aren't we? Because if this review takes a year, if Donald Trump becomes president, he's in the White House in January, he could pull the plug on spending for Ukraine in January. Well, we still haven't increased our spending on defence for 6-7 months. We won't be able to step in and help Ukraine.
Yeah, that would be catastrophic. That would be catastrophic, and this is why I think the UK is going to have a very important decision, exactly because we have a very stable democracy at the moment. Unlike Germany, unlike France, the UK needs to have a leadership role. So I do hope that next week we're going to have more answers. This is important, but so are public services. There are lots of things that are important.
Do food banks take priority over extra ammunition for Ukraine, or the other way around?
It's not an either-or. It cannot be an either-or, because if we do not take care of international security, then guess what? There will be at a doorstep eventually. I don't want to be catastrophic, and I don't want to exaggerate here, but it is not an either-or situation. You cannot just let someone like Vladimir Putin run wild and think that he can invade another nation. It was Ukraine today, it's going to be something else tomorrow.
Forget food banks if we have an invasion on our hands. But we don't even have the right military equipment for our own troops. I think that's the very least you could say. Stella, thank you very much for coming to talk to us. Well, up next, roughly 10 hours until England take on the Netherlands in the Euro semi-final. How excited are you, Andrew? How excited? Andrew?
I really hope we win.
I hope we win as well.
Really do.
They always put us through the ringer. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Khloe Kardashian has come under fire after posting a picture of her 6-year-old daughter wearing a full face of makeup.
Yeah, the reality TV star said the youngster was participating in a dance recital and that wasn't an everyday occurrence.
So this morning we're asking, is it ever okay to let children wear makeup?
Well, joining us now is journalist Julie Cook. So, Julie, it's a child wearing full rouge, bright red lipstick, hair tied back, looking very, very stylised, very much, I think, like a young adult. Is this really the sort of thing we should be doing with small children?
Oh, I think it's absolutely fine. I mean, first of all, in Khloe Kardashian's case, it was a dance recital, so it was very much a kind of performance element to it. She said herself in her post, it wasn't something they do every day. She was taking part in a dance activity. So, you know, I think she's vindicated on that front. But I've let my daughter play with makeup since she was 3. When she was 3, she showed a distinct interest in my makeup palettes, going through my stuff. She's 10 now, and while I don't let her wear a full face like a drag queen, I do let her wear, you know, a bit of mascara on a weekend if she wants to. I don't see any harm in it.
Clearly, if you're a child of a Kardashian who's paid millions of dollars to endorse cosmetics, you know, that's part of the fabric of their family. My concern, though, Julie, is putting those pictures on social media where people can see them. We live in an age now where, you know, wrong-uns are scouring the internet all the time.
A lot of girls do enjoy putting makeup on. It's almost like a self-expression thing. It's like painting on a canvas. They're just trying to be a bit artistic. I don't think it's necessarily as sort of sinister as we're making out. And I think as long as you're not posting pictures everywhere or putting them at risk of harm, I don't see any danger.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, what the hell is that next to me? Good morning.
Well, I did pledge on this show that if we got in the semi-finals, I would wear an England shirt. So here it is. This is an England shirt, been lent to me by a member of the team. I have not worn a football shirt since I left school, and I left school many, many decades ago, and I've never worn a stupid hat like this.
Yeah.
But come on, England. I probably can't get to see the match just because, but millions of other people will be glued to their TV screens, including you.
Well, you look like you look like a flower pot. You know that flower pot character?
Yeah, I don't think I can wear the hat anymore.
The hat's hilarious.
No, that's why. I think the hat can just stay there. But we have the flag of St George.
Exactly.
So here am I. Look. Oh, right. I've got to put the hat back on. Right.
Put the hat back on. Go on. I like the hat. I think the hat is great. Come on.
Do I look like Bill and Ben the flower pot men?
That's exactly who they are. Bill and Ben.
Yeah.
It's just the wrong shape.
OK, so I know what I look like. A total and utter prat.
No, you're covering the flag now.
Yeah, but
oh, that's wonderful.
That's good, isn't it?
It is really good.
And it's good to have the flag of St George here.
Absolutely.
We don't want these horrible right-wing racists nicking our flag.
But I don't even think of that.
It's patriotic.
I don't even think of that when I see the flag. I just think, come on, England, I'm very proud to be British. I love this country.
Yeah.
But listen, obviously tonight, loads of you will be glued to your TV screens as England's going to take on the Netherlands in the Euro semi-finals.
And we've got Jack Carson is in our sports reporter, and our sports reporter Chris Scudder. They are in. Well, Jack's in Dortmund. Jack, unlike you, I've gone the whole Monty, and I'm wearing a blimmin' England football shirt. Where's yours?
Well, I haven't got one, Andrew. I mean, it's a shame that I can't see it right now, because I'm sure it's an absolute picture with you all dressed up in your kit. But let me actually show you my view. I'm joined with Chris Scudder, of course. Our view right now, I mean, this is just a sea of orange here in Dortmund at the moment. I mean, Chris, we're expecting 80,000 Dutch fans to come here today.
If not more than that. It's astounding. It's 10 hours to kick off, and the place is completely orange. A bit later on this afternoon, if you've seen the way the Dutch operate in these tournaments, they have a huge march. They all gather and march to the stadium. Now, England the fans are incredible in Dusseldorf, but at the moment, completely outnumbered. That will change, I think, later on today. But right now, I mean, you look around, if you put the camera on, everyone's drinking beer already. Listen, we're all hoping it's going to pass off very peacefully, but it's going to be absolutely crazy here later on, because the Dutch were not expecting to get this far. England were, but look at it, it's incredible. 10 hours to kick off, and the place is already well into match day.
Well, this is it. It's about where the England fans find space at the moment, because it's still reported that around 40,000 England fans could still be coming
here. Yeah,
there
definitely will be, yeah. But I don't know where they're going to go, whether the police have sort of designated separate areas. But we were in here yesterday, and it was a real mix, wasn't it? And a pretty good nature, to be honest. Times have changed, really, with the banning orders for England. A game like this would attract everybody, but so many can't travel. But listen, the way it happened in Dusseldorf, the noise was incredible from the England fans. I'm sure it'll be the same today, but they're just completely outnumbered by this orange wall so soon in the day. Here we go. They're starting to sing already.
Well, this is it. The atmosphere just building here already is absolutely fantastic. I mean, let's just quickly talk about the game, because, of course, Gareth Southgate's got a bit of a defensive headache as well. Does he stick with that back three? Does he bring in Luke Shaw? Does he bring in Mark Gay once again back from suspension?
Yeah, he will. It'll be the same formation, but Mark Gay will come back in place of Ezri Konsa, who's unlucky for him. But I don't think Luke Shaw will play. Almost certainly Kieran Trippier will play as that left wing back. Not his best position, but he loves his favourites. And hey, listen, we found some England fans. Just quick. Do you have a quick word with these guys? I wonder if we could. But it's a very small corner. It's a very small corner of England fans at the minute. But shall we come on over? Come on over. Look. Are we a bit outnumbered today, aren't we? A bit outnumbered?
Just a little, I'm afraid. More orange
We'll
than
never
white.
be outnumbered, we're English.
Later on, yeah.
Well, there we go. We're going to have to bring you a little bit more England later on, but that's just a taste of the atmosphere here in Dortmund so far.
Well, thank you, Jack. The excitement is rising.
Yes, it's amazing. And he managed to
And
with
I think Jack's got to find an England shirt by the time we next see him. Jack, that's your task. Find an England shirt.
Yeah.
I'm actually getting quite used to mine, actually.
I think it's quite nice.
It's rather fetching, isn't it?
Do you get to keep that?
I don't think I do. It was given to me by a 23-year-old, so I'm very happy that I fit in it.
Yeah, you're very svelte, I must say.
Yeah. What number am I?
Your number? No, there's no number. Back, unfortunately, you're the blank player.
So I could be the player who scores penalties without looking at the goal.
Oh, that was amazing. That was the no-look penalty.
Yeah.
He scored that. I can't remember his name.
Eyes closed, eyes wide open. I would miss the whole goal.
I would miss the entire thing.
I'd probably hit the corner flag.
It'd be an embarrassment. Well, listen, still to come, more Democrats are voicing their concerns that US President Joe Biden is not the man to fight this election campaign. This is Britain's Newsroom. Next, Alex has your weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, it's a drier day today, but one major exception to that will be northeast Scotland, where the rain set in overnight and will continue throughout today. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Further rain to come over parts of southwest Scotland and Northern Ireland. For a good chunk of England and Wales, though, it is largely dry. A few showers for Wales and northwest England. Any showers in the south pretty well scattered. We should see some bright or even sunny spells coming through here, which may lift temperatures up to 22 or 23. Further north, we are some 10 degrees lower. A cool and very wet day across northern Scotland, 12 or 13 at best. And as I said, that rain continuing, likely to cause some problems as the rain builds up through the day. 50 to 70 millimetres of rain in places. A lot of spray and surface water on the roads for this evening's rush hour here. The rain easing a little across southwest Scotland, and much of the central belt will be dry for most of the day. We will continue to see some outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland, again particularly along the north coast. Showers pretty well scattered across England and Wales, and some late sunshine across the southeast. By and large a fine evening here for watching the football. But the rain will continue in northeast Scotland through the evening, and that Met Office yellow warning remains in place until midnight. The breeze coming down from the north here as well, but elsewhere the wind's fairly light, some clearer skies across the south, but generally enough cloud to keep those temperatures up in double digits. On to Thursday's weather, and we'll finally see things turning a bit drier over northeast Scotland. Maybe not from dawn, still some rain likely here, but it'll trickle southwards, so we'll see things turning a bit wetter across Edinburgh down towards Newcastle. A few scattered showers across central parts of England and Wales, but again much of the south looking dry and bright, and a drier day for Northern Ireland. Some sunshine developing later tomorrow across northern Scotland. Still on the cool side, warmer further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There's disruption to some Calmac ferry sailings to and from the Inner Hebrides, Outer Hebrides, Skye, Raasay and Small Isles because of poor weather conditions and tidal conditions. In Essex, the A121 is blocked each way by an accident between the Wacombe roundabout at Epping Forest and Baldwin's Hill in Loughton, causing delays. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues approaching the M25 because of roadworks. In Surrey, the A24 is closed northbound for miles all the way from the Clark's Green roundabout near Ockley to junction 9 of the M25 at Leatherhead after a diesel spill yesterday. There are long delays, especially around Dorking as you divert. And in Dorset, the A35 is closed each way between the Stinsford roundabout and Troy Town turn-off at Kingston Moorwood where a vehicle caught fire. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Summer could be a scorcher with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning, it's 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 10th of July. We are live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Nana Akweer and Andrew Pearce.
Now, a major manhunt is underway. Police are searching for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford after 3 women from the same family were murdered at a property in Hertfordshire last night. We'll have all the latest.
And strategic defence review. As the Prime Minister arrives in Washington for the NATO summit, he commits to a review, but so far no more money for defence.
And Suella Braverman blasts Liberal Tories. The former Home Secretary says the Progress flag, which is an updated version of the Pride flag, was flown over government buildings as if they were occupied territory. Just listen to the language she uses.
Well, the Progress flag says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
And I hope you're ready to go through a load of mixed emotions as the Three Lions hopefully will roar tonight as England take on the Netherlands in the Euro 2024 semi-final. Spain awaits the winner, but can England do it?
Well, we hope so. And a sugar tax says, I don't normally like new taxes, but the amount of sugar consumed by children from soft drinks in the UK halved within a year of the sugar tax being introduced. So is tax the best way to tackle the obesity crisis?
be honest, Andrew, I get a little bit annoyed with all these sort of drinks where they've taken out the sugar and put in some Neuro-type sweetener that can affect you in a different manner. Look, you know, I'd rather just have the sugar. At least it's sugar. Just don't give the kids those fizzy drinks.
Yeah, or not as many.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
So when we were kids, it was holidays and holidays. That was it, fizzy drinks. But now it's routine and standard, isn't it?
I think they've spoiled the taste as well, because the saccharin and all the different sweeteners, I can taste them in the drinks. They leave a horrible aftertaste.
Yeah.
I just think, look, you know...
Drink water.
Drink water.
And bread and dripping and gruel.
Bread and dripping and gruel.
Welcome to life under a Labour government.
As ever, send us your views, post your comments, visit gbnews.com/your say. But first, let's get your latest news with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 10, and we'll start with a recap of that news of an urgent manhunt that's now underway for a 26-year-old man who's wanted in connection with a triple murder in Hertfordshire. Officers are asking the public not to approach Carl Clifford, who may still be armed, and to contact police immediately if they see him. Police found 3 women believed to be related fatally injured at a property in Bushy just before 7 o'clock last night. Detectives leading the search are now urging anyone with information to come forward by visiting the Hertfordshire Police website or by calling 101. And this morning, 2 children aged 5 and 6 have been confirmed to have died amid an infection outbreak at a Liverpool primary school. That's at Milstead Primary School, which caters for those with special educational needs. They're currently dealing with an outbreak of Giardia stomach infection. It's being overseen by the UK Health Security Agency. The head teacher at the school has said that the entire community is devastated, they say, by the deaths of those 2 children who filled their classes with joy. In other news, the Prime Minister is promising a review of the UK's defence and security, which could see the size of the armed forces increase. His manifesto promised to spend 2.5% of national income on defence. However, he's refused to guarantee the government will meet that promise within his first term. Instead, he's pledging to keep the UK's defences strong without breaking his spending and borrowing rules.
We will carry out our strategic review to look at the challenges, the capabilities, and on the back of that make further plans. I'm committed to that 2.5% within our fiscal rules, but that strategic review needs to come first.
Well, those comments from Sir Keir Starmer come as he arrived into Washington earlier for a NATO summit where he's pushing allies to invest more. It's the first time he'll line up with other world leaders as Prime Minister. And opening the NATO summit, US President Joe Biden insisted the alliance is more powerful than ever.
An overwhelming bipartisan majority of Americans understand that NATO makes us all safer. The fact that both Democratic and Republican parties are represented here today is a testament to that fact. The American people know that all the progress we've made in the past 75 years has happened behind the shield of NATO. And the American people understand what would happen if there was no NATO.
In the US, Donald Trump is challenging President Biden to another head-to-head debate this week. Speaking at a rally in Florida, Trump has offered to face off without moderators and said it would be a chance for Biden to redeem himself. Joe Biden's stumbling performance in the first debate raised concerns among Democrats with talk that he could be replaced as their nominee. Trump's described it as the most decisive and overwhelming defeat in the history of presidential debates.
Let's do another debate this week so that Sleepy Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holds barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere.
News next from Israel, where the forces there say it's looking into reports that almost 30 people have been killed in an airstrike at a refugee camp in southern Gaza. That strike is reported to have hit a school turned shelter, according to Palestinian medical officials. However, Israeli forces claim it hit a Hamas fighter from the 7th of October attacks. Meanwhile, advancing tanks in Gaza have forced thousands to flee as Israel's ground assault continues. And talks aimed at bringing about a pause in fighting are expected to resume later today. Here, a new study suggests that the sugar tax on soft drinks introduced just over 6 years ago has led to people consuming significantly less sugar. The Conservative government brought in the rule to tackle obesity and encourage manufacturers to make their products healthier. Researchers who followed nearly 8,000 adults and more than 7,000 children for a year after the tax was introduced has found that sugar consumption has dropped. And finally, thousands of England fans are in Dortmund for tonight's Euro 2024 semi-final against the Netherlands. But the Brits are expected to be outnumbered. It's thought there could be 4 times more opposition supporters out tonight on the streets in Germany, where Gareth Southgate's side push for a place in the final against Spain on Sunday. And the manager has admitted that the squad haven't been at their best, but they have managed to pull through.
The beginning of the tournament, the expectation weighed quite heavily, and of course the external noise was louder than it's ever been. So I felt we couldn't quite get ourselves in the right place, and in the end, what was impressive was that the players ground it out. They ground results out and found ways to win.
Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you for another update at 10:30.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome. This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News with Andrew Pearce and Nana Akua.
Right, well, let's return to the breaking news that an urgent manhunt is underway for a 26-year-old man in Hertfordshire wanted in connection with a triple murder.
So police officers are asking the public under no circumstances to approach Kyle Clifford, who may still be armed. And they're saying that you must contact police immediately if you think you see him.
It's frightening, isn't it? Really frightening.
Yeah, I mean, 3 in one same family.
Is it definitely from the same family? Do we know?
We're certainly in the same house.
Yeah.
Really appalling.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's hope he's found very quickly.
Yeah.
A lot of you have been getting in touch with your thoughts on things we've been saying. gbnews.com/your say. This one from Steve. We were talking earlier to Stella. He says they keep saying Labour have a large majority. Seats, yes. Voters, no. 66% of the electorate did not vote for Labour.
Well, it is the lowest percentage share of the vote ever for a government that has a majority, let alone a landslide majority, because 34% is microscopic. He got fewer votes than Corbyn got in 2019, when Corbyn led Labour to the worst Labour defeat since 1935. It's a quirk of our voting system. But I don't want to change first.
You don't want to change it? But isn't it
proportional representations, I don't know.
But proportional representation works better if you've got more parties in the fray, and we are no longer a two-party system.
No,
I mean, so
it could be that actually perhaps we do have to think about it.
I think we do, because it's not right, because otherwise you get the situation that we have, one party with a massive majority, yet with not really the lion's share of the vote.
No, and also you shouldn't forget that the Liberal Democrats got 3.5 million votes, 72 MPs. Reform UK, 4.1 million votes, 5 MPs.
That's not right.
No, that isn't fair.
That's just not right.
But you go back to 2015 when Nigel Farage led UKIP, they got 4 million votes, 1 MP.
Yeah. And you see, the thing is, it was in a Labour manifesto before to change the system of first past the post. But of course, now they're in power, they're not going to do that, are they?
And now he's got a stonking majority of 170 odd. Of course, he's not going to bother.
Yeah.
And of course, they also said they're going to change the House of Lords so that you can't join the House of Lords if you're over 80. First U-turn already.
Why should they? Listen, somebody's compos mentis and got lots of experience in politics. We do need people who are older to.
Dame Margaret Beckett, who first got into the Commons in 74, she stood down at the last election. She's going into the Lords for Labour, put there by Starmer. She's 81.
It's ageist. That is ageist. It's not on. That's not going to work. Marion says, I love that Nana challenges people when they make wild accusations about people who are not there to answer for themselves. Thank you, Marion. Thank you.
Well, moving on, Sir Keir Starmer has arrived in Washington. It's his first NATO summit. He will meet world leaders. It is the alliance's 75th anniversary.
The Prime Minister says that he has a cast-iron commitment to spend 2.5% of the national income on defence, but is still refusing to say when the promise will be delivered.
So joining us to talk about this now is the defence analyst and former British Army officer, Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford. Stuart, if I can use your first name.
Of course.
You know Admiral Lord West, who was, of course, Gordon Brown's Defence Minister, the former First Sea Lord. He said it won't do to say when the situation allows. It's not good enough. The extra money has to be spent right now, particularly when we see what's happening in Ukraine, and we could have Donald Trump coming into the White House who's blowing not even hot and cold on Ukraine. He's suggesting there'll be no extra money for Ukraine.
Well, I think Lord West's absolutely right. If you accept the hypothesis that we no longer live in a peacetime, but we are living in pre-war time, then time is of the essence. And leaving aside for one moment whether 2.5% of GDP is sufficient to spend on defence, which I don't think it is, there's no excuse really for saying that the defence of the realm and its citizens is the first priority of government, which Sir Keir Starmer has just reiterated, and then say, but we'll raise it up when circumstances allow. It should be done as quickly as possible. I realise that immediately it might not be possible, but as quickly as possible. And at the moment, it seems to be that he's hiding behind the Strategic Defence Review, which starts next week, apparently, and it's going to take a year. But General Sheriff, former deputy head of NATO, has said it could be done in 6 weeks, and I think he's absolutely right. So Labour is beginning to row back in some of its commitments now that it's in power.
Well, it's all very well to do that in opposition and be sort of vague and non-decisive there, but he is actually leading the country now. How do you think that will be perceived on the world stage? Because presumably other NATO countries will be hearing that and thinking, well, you're pushing us to make that commitment, but you're not prepared to commit when you are going to make that commitment.
Well, I think that they'll view it as being sort of anemic and slightly limp-wristed, if I can put it like that. Britain has always maintained it is the USA's staunchest ally in NATO. And, of course, NATO is the most successful defensive military alliance in the world or in history, but the level of spending that some of the NATO countries have contributed is less than the ideal. The big question is what's going to happen when Donald Trump returns to the White House, as he almost undoubtedly will next January after the elections in November, because he will not thaw. Sorry if I can use that Scottish word. He will not put up with lesser spending from his NATO allies. He just won't do it.
Stuart, if the strategic review could be done in 6 weeks, you probably have a good idea about what we should be doing. It's reported in the papers today that the army now is as shrunken as it was in the time of the Napoleonic Wars 200 years ago. Do we need a bigger army, or do we need to be investing more in drones, cyber warfare? What would be your best way forward?
Well, I think looking across all three services, if you take defence of the realm being the primary purpose of the armed forces, then we do need to look at the Navy and the Air Force before the Army, sadly, being an ex-Army officer myself. The Navy is short of vessels, particularly the escort fleet. The RAF is short of aircraft. And then coming down to the Army, we're short of things like tanks and air defence and artillery pieces. But all of the services are short of personnel. And you can have all the shiny equipment in the world, but if you haven't got the people to crew that equipment, then it's not worth a jot.
Well, I was listening to an interview earlier, and there was also no commitment to increase the number of personnel. Not even to say that they will definitely do that. Not that you need to have an actual number, but just a commitment to say that you're going to do that. I mean, is that a concern?
Oh, absolutely a concern. If you can't crew ships which are tied up in port, if you don't have enough pilots to fly the F-35s and Typhoons, and you don't have enough military personnel to man the battalions, the tanks and artillery, then that's a huge concern. And I think that's one of the very first things that the Labour Party needs to deal with is recruitment and retention of armed forces personnel. And I think it's easily fixed, but they need to be convinced of that.
Of course, that interview was with Luke Pollard. He's the Armed Forces Minister, and he could not commit to increasing personnel.
But before we let you go, Stuart, some Tories who would have potentially run for the leadership if they hadn't lost their seats last week, such as Grant Shapps, who was Defence Secretary, says 2.5% of GDP isn't enough. It should be closer to 3%. Is that where you are?
Well, I mean, again, bearing in mind that I'm biased here, I think that 3% should be the target. And then beyond that, we should be moving to 4%. Which Poland is doing at the moment. Now, I understand, of course, that they are on the front line, if you like, and therefore the incentive for them is greater. But 2.5% will hardly fill the gaps in our ammunition stocks, which have run so low that the outgoing Chief of the General Staff wouldn't even mention what the figures were, and the equipment that was sent to Ukraine. So 2.5% is inadequate. 3% would be a step in the right direction. And 4%, in my opinion, is where we should be going. Fascinating.
All right. That's Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Crawford talking about that defence review. Interesting, 6 weeks, some of the experts say it can be done in. So why are politicians saying a year? They are kicking the can down the road, aren't they?
It's just it's typical Sir Keir Starmer technique. I mean, as we saw in opposition, they were non-committal. I'm hoping and prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt that he will be...
New government.
Get on with it, because actually there was no real credible alternative, and it had to be the Labour Party. They were the only ones that could win. But stay with us, because still to come, water bosses are being paid almost £200,000 in bonuses. Is that right? They're getting paid for failure. You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Welcome back. Stefan Kyriazis has ever been to the theatre and saw one of the most successful performers of the modern age, one who has made his name in different genres on television and is always a magnetic presence on the stage. About whom are we talking, Stefan?
We're talking about James Corden at the Old Vic for The Constituent and its Traverse staging. So audience on either side, and it's a fantastic experience. But also it's been done this time to bring everything in a lot and make it quite intimate, because you just have one simple set. It's just a table, office space. This is a new play by Joe Penhall, and it's addressing very, very current issues of safety, especially for people in public service. Doctors, nurses, teachers, and of course, as you know, politicians that are at risk and being attacked. So we have Joe Cox, Sir David Ames, and we have politicians talking about cancelling their surgeries, not wanting to appear in public, teachers being threatened. And James Corden plays an ex-serviceman who is going through a difficult divorce, dealing with a lot of PTSD, also feeling very much like fathers are overlooked, and he wants to fight for their rights. And an old school friend is a local MP, played by Anna Maxwell Martin. And he goes in to start talking to her, and it starts off quite chummy and jovial, and then it darkens and darkens. He gets quite aggressive and frustrated. She wants to help. She's an absolute idealist. This politician's sense of we don't choose who we work for. You know, we are here by duty to work for everybody in our constituency. It spirals a lot. I have to say, Corden, sensational. Really? He really is a fantastic actor. Of all of them, he's so natural, and he has the most difficult role where his character is shifting all the time and becomes potentially quite threatening and dangerous, but then there's also a beautiful catharsis at the end.
The People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Up your end, Mike.
Be quiet. Stop messing around. They're messing around with our flag here.
We are keeping this flag here in honour of England taking on the Netherlands tonight. Did you see me in my football shirt?
Indeed, I think of nothing else. I see the team bath, that's the trouble.
The first time I've worn a football shirt since I was at school, Mike.
Really? That's amazing. I must have worn hundreds of football shirts since then, going to England matches all over the world. I'm a huge patriot. To be paid to follow England around the world is quite a job, you know what I mean? In places like South Africa and Brazil and Portugal and Germany. And
Everton.
Everton as well, of course. I followed around the world, but the patriotism is, of course, for the national team. And I have a bit of a grudge against the Dutch manager, Ronald Koeman, because he was Everton's manager for a while.
Right.
But I'm afraid it was the start of a period of not very good results for Everton. So I want Mr. Koeman, who's challenged everybody, I'm the most famous Dutchman, to be beaten tonight.
I thought you were Scottish.
God, it's like spitting him. Never died.
It sounded like Sean Connery or something.
Yeah. It sounded like the Godfather. You come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding.
Fawlty Towers. Now, talk of Fawlty Towers, radio boomers.
Yeah.
Are
you looking at me?
By the way, Stephen, congratulations, your mob are finally in.
I know.
Well, why aren't you looking more cheerful and enthused? I thought you'd be doing cartwheels when you came in.
Well, no, at my age, dear boy.
You haven't won an election for 19 years until last
I know. And even up until 10 o'clock on the Thursday night, I thought, we're going to mess it up somehow, because we can do it. We're good at that sort of thing. But no, I mean, the grown-ups are back in the room, Andrew, let's be honest. We're now taking it seriously.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree. How can you say...
Of course you wouldn't agree with it.
How can you say the grown-ups are back in the room when none of them have had any experience at running a country because they've been out of power for so long? How can they be classed as grown-ups? Go on, sorry.
We're going to come back to this conversation, but we are going live to our man on the ground. GB News reporter Jack Carson is in Dortmund, and I did set him a challenge to wear an England football shirt. Oh, Jack, you still haven't got one.
You can't get one now.
And was that Mr. Blobby you just walked past?
No, it's an orange one.
There's plenty of them there, by the way.
It is so crazy here. It's so crazy here. I can barely move, to be honest, Andrew and Nana. It's absolutely fantastic. I mean, let me just swing you around quickly. You've got all these Dutch fans here. I swing you around here. You've got a Dutch fan with a massive flag. You've got a bit of a few England fans here. Come over here quickly. Let's just speak very quickly to Mick and Della. Now, Mick, I mean, just tell me, how are you feeling ahead of this semi-final?
No problem at all. We're going to win about 3-0.
How are you so confident?
I think Lampard will get 2 and Terry will get 1. Oh, wrong year.
I mean, how are you feeling?
Yeah, quite confident, actually. I've got the whole vibe going on, and yeah.
What do you make of the atmosphere?
Better when the English get here.
All right.
No, the Dutch are brilliant.
Thank you very much, guys, for speaking to us this morning. That's a little bit of a quick view there from Mick and Della, some of the England fans that are here. There we go. Lots of Dutch fans, lots of England fans making lots of noise. It's a fantastic atmosphere here, right in the centre of Dortmund.
Very good. That's Jack Carson. Back with our panel. Look, boys, we've got to talk about the football. Will you be watching it?
Well, we can just pick you up on one point you said about experience. There's a young lad, I think he's 22 years old, who's now the baby of the house, who won a seat in East Anglia. And somebody said to him, the Andrew Pearce on some other channel, said, look, what experience have you got? And he said, I'll tell you the experience I've got. I'm 22 years old, I've got a massive student debt, I can't get a decent job, and I'm living in rented accommodation. I think it's more of a matter of what you know rather than the years you've got under the bonnet.
So what on earth does he stand for Labour for if he's worried about his
Because it was an unwinnable seat.
Yes, because also, of course, Keir Starmer, when he became Labour leader, said he would abolish tuition fees, and he turned on it.
Of course he would.
I don't think he ever said he'd abolish tuition fees. No, he did.
Yes, he did. It was in his 10 pledges, all of which he dropped, all 10.
Yeah, well, that was before Truss crashed the economy, wasn't it? Let's be honest.
Oh, you're blaming on Liz Truss again.
And also, that's right. And also, if Keir Starmer gets his way, the grown-ups aren't going to be running anything if they're aged between 16 and 18, because they've never had any life experience of doing anything.
Because they're going to get to vote.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
exactly what I'm
I don't
saying.
think that you can guarantee that they will vote for Labour, because a lot of the young people I
totally agree.
went for reform.
I totally agree.
Well, look what they did in France. In France, the 16 to 18-year-olds voting for the far right. But the thing is, if you're going to vote at 16, what about 15? 14? Where do you stop?
Yeah, 12. I totally agree. Getting back to the football for a minute, by the way.
Yes.
In 1990, that was the famous year when Gaza cried. Do you remember? We got to the semi-finals. We were isolated to Sardinia because the English fans behaved so badly in Europe. They put them on an island in Sardinia. We were in the same group as the Dutch. The Dutch came in huge numbers, and the difference was the Dutch people, the Dutch football fans, were extremely intelligent and would sit there analysing the game with you in English and drinking half a beer, while all these hooligans from England were rampaging around the town and the city and all that. And significantly, at the game tonight, 2/3 of the stadium will be full of Dutch fans. For the first time in this competition, England fans are going to be massively outnumbered. That's how fanatical the Dutch people are.
Listen, mate, we may be outnumbered, but we're not going to be outsung.
Well, maybe.
We're talking about baby boomers.
Yeah, we definitely are.
but what about...
So this is a great story, right?
Nana's got the floor.
No, because I was thinking, actually, I wanted to talk about Sick Note Britain, because Wes Streeting has actually, he's gone one more than the Labour, than the Conservative Party. He said, end the begging bowl culture.
Yeah.
Now, if a Tory had said that, there would have been a serious problem.
I totally agree. Totally agree. Am I right in thinking that since the start of COVID, there are 40% more people now drawing sick pay than there were then? I mean, just a massive increase. And everybody's saying, hang on, how could people have got that sick? A huge proportion of that is down to mental health, right? That could have been caused by people being locked up in COVID and all that. Nevertheless, it's something that's completely out of control. And, as you've just made the point, Nana, if the Tories had taken a grip of that and said, we're going to crack down on this, that might have been one of the Tory policies we were looking for to give us confidence to vote for them.
Would you have Gary Lineker saying something about that?
Nana, can I take a real risk here and correct you?
Go on, then.
When he talked about the begging bowl, he wasn't talking about individuals coming to the DSS and asking for money. He was talking about the NHS every year coming to the Secretary of State and saying we need more money. He wasn't talking about individuals. But even, you know, I've said opposite...
start with the junior doctors.
Well, indeed. I've said opposite constituents for 22 years, and I've often said, you know, how on earth can you claim to be unfit for... And the problem is, if you say you've got backache or you've got some mental problems, it's incredibly difficult, because we do not have a proper tribunal system. At the moment, if you get refused PIP or whatever, you know, you can go to a tribunal, which is 3 people, it's normally made up. Usually one person is a semi-professional, one is a solicitor, one is maybe a trade unionist. And it's very difficult for them to say no. What we need is have a proper tribunal system, some sort of a template which say, look, I'm sorry, you may not be fit for that job, but by heavens, you're fit for this job.
Well, can I just say, I was talking about that, actually, because he was talking about Sick Note Britain.
I knew I should never correct you.
You shouldn't have, really.
But a lot of them...
You got it wrong.
I'm sorry, Stephen, a lot of them are just shirking.
Yeah, I agree.
But
they're just shirking.
No, I agree. I think the fact that people were locked down for up to 18 months or something like that gave people the mindset that I quite like this, I quite like not working. And when you look at how generous the welfare system is in this country, 265 million is the total welfare billion is the total welfare bill in this country. The welfare bill is generous enough for people to be able to go to the pub every day, have a few drinks, not work, and have a workless life. And people will criticise you with that and say, oh, you know, what about all the problems they've got? Yeah, but there are lots of people, I know because I've witnessed them, who simply are swinging the lead.
Would you know, I mean, if you were to go to, say, Ghana, this would not be happening. I mean, you would be starving. There would be no sort of welfare system to prop you up in such a generous manner and give you this option.
Isn't that a part of the magnet effect across the channel of the small boat, Steve?
Of course.
We're a soft touch when it comes to benefits.
Well, can I just say, benefits are higher in Germany and in France.
Well,
but then don't give them to as many people. That's the difference.
Right.
And I was about to say, but they don't give them to as many people.
I'm sure you were.
And they don't put the migrants in France in hotels. They've got the camp.
Tents.
The tent in Calais.
But don't forget, in France, you can inherit your father's pension. And it's incredible.
That's pretty handy. That's pretty handy. Do many fathers get murdered by any chance? You can inherit your father's pension. The other issue, of course...
your dad's pension?
The other issue, of course, is that because we don't have any system of keeping note of people in this country, the black economy is massive in this country.
Bring back ID cards.
Absolutely massive. You go up and down any high street in this country and you will see businesses which are clearly being run, not because they're commercial, but because they take money in and money goes out. I see them. You
know we've got 9 hairdressers for
barbershops.
I mean, I have to say, I'd spend very little time in barbershops, Phyllis. Well,
that's not surprising,
Well, they tend to charge me a search fee rather than... But, you know, but when there are 9 different, you know, barbershops within half a mile of where I live. What's all that about? And all these vape shops, and the worst of the lot, there's ones in Oxford Street that sell the American sweets.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Westminster City Council's cracking down on it, but these are basically cash mechanisms.
Of course they are. I mean, the barbershops where I live are proliferation of them. There are two next door to each other. You know, there's one there, been there forever, and then suddenly a second one. And every time I walk past, nobody's getting their hair cut in these places. And how come
and they're open
the people...
all night as well.
Well, look, you know what, that's very entertaining, most interesting, but you know what?
And they're open
We've
at
got to
2
go to
o'clock
the
in the
news.
morning.
Thank you very much. Mike Parry and also Stephen Pound, thank you so much.
They'll be back.
Right, let's get an update.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 10:30, and the top story this morning, an urgent manhunt is underway for a 26-year-old man wanted in connection with a triple murder in Hertfordshire. Officers are asking the public not to approach Carl Clifford, who may still be armed, they say, and to contact police immediately if they do see him. Officers found 3 women believed to be related fatally injured at a property in Bushy just before 7 o'clock last night, and detectives leading that ongoing search are urging anyone with information to come forward on the Hertfordshire Police website or by calling 101. 2 children aged 5 and 6 have died amid an infection outbreak at the Liverpool primary school, Milstead Primary School, which caters for those with special educational needs. That school is currently dealing with an outbreak of Giardia, a stomach infection, and we understand it's now being overseen by the UK Health Security Agency. The head teacher of the school has said the entire community is devastated by the deaths of those 2 young children, who they say filled the classes with joy. In other news, the Prime Minister has refused to guarantee that the government will meet his promise to spend 2.5% of national income on defence within his first term. Sir Keir Starmer says it will only happen when it can be done within the rules he set on spending and borrowing. Meanwhile, he's in Washington today for a NATO summit to mark 75 years of the military alliance. And Ukraine is high up on the agenda with more aid already promised. But the Ukrainian president won't be joining while the fighting continues in his country, though leaders are expected to agree a statement promising Ukraine an irreversible path towards membership. Here, a study has found that the sugar tax imposed on fizzy drinks has led to a significant drop in sugar in people's diets. It came into force in April 2018 and was designed to encourage manufacturers to change the ingredients in their products. 12 months later, children were found to be consuming nearly 5 grams less per day, that's sugar, and adults 11 grams less. And the build-up is beginning for thousands of England fans descending on Dortmund in Germany today. The squad are facing the Netherlands this evening in the second semi-final of Euro 2024. Manager Gareth Southgate has admitted that the team haven't been at their best, but that they have managed to pull through, he says. And the winners tonight will take on Spain in the final on Sunday. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis. Next, a look at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's how the markets are shaping up this morning. The pound will buy you $1.2798 and 1.1833 euros. The price of gold at 10:30 is £1,853 and 43 pence per ounce. And the FTSE 100 this hour is at 8,163 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, it's a drier day today, but one major exception to that will be northeast Scotland, where the rain set in overnight and will continue throughout today. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Further rain to come over parts of southwest Scotland and Northern Ireland. For a good chunk of England and Wales, though, it is largely dry. A few showers for Wales and northwest England. Any showers in the south pretty well scattered. We should see some brighter, even sunny spells coming through here, which may may lift temperatures up to 22 or 23. Further north, we are some 10 degrees lower. A cool and very wet day across northern Scotland, 12 or 13 at best. And as I said, that rain continuing, likely to cause some problems as the rain builds up through the day. 50 to 70 millimetres of rain in places. A lot of spray and surface water on the roads for this evening's rush hour here. The rain easing a little across southwest Scotland, and much of the central belt will be dry for most of the day. We will continue to see some outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland, again particularly along the north coast. Showers pretty well scattered across England and Wales, and some late sunshine across the southeast. By and large a fine evening here for watching the football, but the rain will continue in northeast Scotland through the evening, and that Met Office yellow warning remains in place until midnight. The breeze coming down from the north here as well, but elsewhere the wind's fairly light, some clearer skies across the south, but generally enough cloud to keep those temperatures up in double digits. On to Thursday's weather, and we'll finally see things turning a bit drier over northeast Scotland. Maybe not from dawn, still some rain likely here, but it'll trickle southwards, so we'll see things turning a bit wetter across Edinburgh down towards Newcastle. A few scattered showers across central parts of England and Wales, but again much of the south looking dry and bright, and a drier day for Northern Ireland. Some sunshine developing later tomorrow across northern Scotland. Still on the cool side, warmer further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, it's a drier day today, but one major exception to that will be northeast Scotland, where the rain set in overnight and will continue throughout today. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Further rain to come over parts of southwest Scotland and Northern Ireland. For a good chunk of England and Wales, though, it is largely dry. A few showers for Wales and northwest England. Any showers in the south pretty well scattered. We should see some bright or even sunny spells coming through here, which may lift temperatures up to 22 or 23. Further north, we are some 10 degrees lower. A cool and very wet day across northern Scotland, 12 or 13 at best. And as I said, that rain continuing, likely to cause some problems as the rain builds up through the day. 50 to 70 millimetres of rain in places. A lot of spray and surface water on the roads for this evening's rush hour here. The rain easing a little across southwest Scotland, and much of the central belt will be dry for most of the day. We will continue to see some outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland, again particularly along the north coast. Showers pretty well scattered across England and Wales, and some late sunshine across the southeast. By and large a fine evening here for watching the football, but the rain will continue in northeast Scotland through the evening, and that Met Office yellow warning remains in place until midnight. The breeze coming down from the north here as well, but elsewhere the wind's fairly light, some clearer skies across the south, but generally enough cloud to keep those temperatures up in double digits. On to Thursday's weather, and we'll finally see things turning a bit drier over northeast Scotland. Maybe not from dawn, still some rain likely here, but it'll trickle southwards, so we'll see things turning a bit wetter across Edinburgh down towards Newcastle. A few scattered showers across central parts of England and Wales, but again much of the south looking dry and bright, and a drier day for Northern Ireland. Some sunshine developing later tomorrow across northern Scotland. Still on the cool side, warmer further south.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. There's disruption to some CalMac ferry sailings to and from the Inner and Outer Hebrides, Skye, Raasay and Small Isles because of poor weather conditions and tidal conditions. In the West Midlands on the A38M Aston Expressway, the inside lane is closed heading out of Birmingham at Park Circus after an accident. It sloped towards there. In South Wales on the A470, the inside lane is closed northbound at the Abercynon roundabout where a car's broken down causing queues. On the M26 in Kent, there are westbound queues towards the M25 because of roadworks. In Surrey, the A24 is closed northbound for miles all the way from the Clarks Green roundabout near Ockley to junction 9 of the M25 at Leatherhead after a diesel spill yesterday. And in Dorset, the A35 is closed each way northeast of Dorchester after a vehicle caught fire causing delays. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Good morning. It is 10:40. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
And the breaking news, we can bring you new pictures from Bushy in Hertfordshire, where a manhunt is underway for a 26-year-old wanted in connection with a triple murder.
Now, officers are asking the public not to approach Carl Clifford as police believe he may be carrying a crossbow and to contact police immediately if you see him.
And new data released today reveals that nearly a third of those people with bipolar have experienced discrimination at work.
And with nearly 1.4 million people claiming universal credit because of mental health issues, is it time employers started understanding the condition? Well, joining us now is the Chief Executive of Bipolar UK, Simon Kitchen, who's in the studio, not in the kitchen.
That's right, yes.
You know, I couldn't resist. I did it before. I'll do it again. I won't do it again, I know. OK, Simon, look, a lot of people hear bipolar. To them, it sounds like ADHD. It sounds like all the other ones.
Yeah.
What is bipolar?
Well, it's a really common issue and question that we get, because a lot of mental health and mental illness all gets lumped together. And actually, mental illnesses are all really different, the same way that cancer and Parkinson's are different physical conditions. So bipolar is probably the most common severe mental illness. There's over 1 million people living with it in the UK, and it's characterised by extreme highs and lows of emotion. It's worth noting that most people with bipolar at any one time have got a balanced mood and experiencing life like you and I are today. So the first symptoms can be characterised by high energy, which is called hypomania, where people can be very productive. They might be able to describe, we're talking about the workplace, people in the workplace can feel like they're doing two people's jobs. They can be very creative. But then if those symptoms aren't managed, it can escalate into full-blown mania, where people stop sleeping, they become very erratic, they can experience very difficult behaviours in the workplace. They might send emails at 2 o'clock in the morning, like 6 pages long. And then the other side of it is around the depressive symptoms, really deep, dark depressions that can last for months at a time. The suicide rate for people with bipolar is horrendous. It's about 1 in 5 people with bipolar take their own life unless they get support to manage the condition. So it's a critical issue for work, but also for the NHS as well. And as you said, about for the benefit system.
Is there any way of specifically diagnosing it, or is it just behavioural diagnosis? Because is there a blood test, a brain scan, something that will actually say, yes, this person suffers with the condition?
It's a really good question. They're looking at biomarkers, some of which will be using blood tests, but there isn't one reliable one that works at the moment. The way that the diagnosis is done now is that most people pick up the symptoms, they would then talk to their GP about it, then refer on to a psychiatrist, and they would do the diagnosing. The psychiatrist would look at they'd call it a case history, so looking at someone's family history, have they experienced mental health issues in their family in the past, but then also just looking out for those telltale signs of mania in depression. What we do as a charity is we've got a campaign called Could It Be Bipolar, where people can go on and use what's called a mood disorder questionnaire. It's on our website. If you type in Could It Be Bipolar, you can go straight to it. And that will just ask people questions about hypomania, and then that will help them then to be able to go and talk to the symptoms with their GP.
Does anything in particular cause it? Is there any uniting factor?
So predominantly it's a genetic condition. Right. So twin studies suggest that it's about 70% genetic, 30% environmental, but it can be triggered by life events. So if people have experienced childhood trauma, that can trigger bipolar. And also, like, a combination of different factors, lots of mini crises at the same time. So a lot of people can be triggered by bereavement, but also really good positive stuff happening, which is one of the tragedies of bipolar in the workplace, is that many people can be triggered by getting a promotion at work, perhaps having night shifts, maybe losing a job.
Food, can food affect it? Is there is there some trigger with certain foods?
Well, caffeine and alcohol and different narcotics can make it worse and aggravate it. And there's some evidence around some drugs potentially making bipolar worse, but it won't necessarily cause bipolar to develop. Some of them might cause psychosis that could then trigger it.
Are you bipolar?
I'm not living with bipolar, but about a third of our staff are living with bipolar. And if any of your listeners or viewers take anything away from today, it's not to be scared about the condition. About a third of our staff are living with it, and you wouldn't know in our charity who's got it and who hasn't got it. And one of the great tragedies of bipolar is that people experience a lot of discrimination and fear in the workplace. So about a third of people said they were actively discriminated against, and then about 40% said they experienced a lot of stigma. So when they told their employer, about 24% actually regretted telling them about it, because they felt they were passed over for promotion, they weren't given opportunities, and people treated them differently. So one of the big things we want to do is normalise a conversation about bipolar, recognise how serious it is, but also that a lot of the reasonable adjustments for living well are the reasonable adjustments that any of us would probably need in the workplace. I've got a young family, and the changes that the charity makes for me and accommodates that is exactly the same as for those living with bipolar, so it doesn't have to be a big burden for employers.
Well, stay there, Simon. We're going to bring into the conversation now Maya Hodgkinson, who's faced discrimination after being diagnosed with bipolar 12 years ago. Morning to you, Maya. If you could tell us your story, when did you realise there was perhaps, if I can use the word, a problem?
So I have experienced issues throughout my entire life, and it wasn't until I was 30 that I finally received a diagnosis. So that was 10 years ago now. I think perceptions of it have changed a lot more people are talking about it, so it is easier now to using mood disorder questionnaires and things to think that you might have the condition and be able to seek that support. But yes, it is often misdiagnosed for things like depression and other conditions. So it is very much separate to that and in its own right.
How does it affect you in your daily life?
Most of the time, I'm very lucky that I am stable a lot of the time. If there are big changes in my life, then, you know, sort of moving house or a change in job or any kind of change to routine can be triggering, as well as sleep deprivation is a big trigger. I have a new baby, so that's something that is very common at the moment. But yes, those are the main triggers for me with my condition.
And you said in the introduction, we said that you'd suffered discrimination at work because of being bipolar. What happened?
So I've experienced a number of situations, unfortunately, in a variety of different jobs. So anything from my condition being disclosed to colleagues through to an employer blaming their own work mistakes on me and citing my bipolar as a reason why those mistakes were made. And also being asked to warn colleagues when I'm having a bad day by putting a marker on my desk in the form of a fluffy toy to be able to just pre-warn anybody in case I'm having a bad day and might be a little erratic.
What does erratic mean? Do you start shouting and hollering? I mean, what does erratic mean?
Absolutely not. This is exactly what Simon's been talking about, is that these misconceptions of what bipolar is and a lot of ignorance around it, unfortunately, which there are so many resources out there now, including on the Bipolar UK website. So there isn't really an excuse for not being able to understand what it is and how you can support employers who are experiencing it.
And can I just very briefly, can you take? Is there a medication available to help or not?
There are medications you can take. Bipolar is very individual, so what my experience is would be very different to somebody else's experience. So I think it's really important that you get that kind of consistency of care with medical professionals so that you can manage your bipolar really well, either through therapy or a specialist medication. Not a specialist medication, but something specific for your version of bipolar, for want of a better word.
OK, Mia, thank you very much, Mia Hodgkinson. Thank you so much. And also to Simon Kitchen from Bipolar UK. Up next, taxing sugary drinks has reduced the amount of sugar children are consuming. But should we be relying on taxes to tackle obesity? This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom on GB News. Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes. Thank you for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Isabel Webster. Thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Meghan Markle has reportedly finished filming her new show for Netflix. It aims to celebrate the joys of cooking, gardening, entertaining and friendship.
Yeah, this comes after Prince Harry's Netflix documentary, The Heart of Invictus, failed to hit the right note with viewers missing out on the top 10 in the streaming charts.
So, will this next venture be a success? Well, joining us now is royal commentator Kinsey Schofield.
I know I've talked to the both of you about Meghan Markle potentially running for president, so this feels like a bit of a dud to go from Meghan Markle running for president to Meghan Markle's Netflix series about friendship and cooking. So she's wrapped this recent show. They rented a home near hers in Montecito, so that as their cooking set. And they're saying that this is really make or break for Harry and Meghan when it comes to their Netflix contract.
You think, Kinsey, it's fair to say that Meghan Markle has proved to be commercially a bit of a damp squib? Even in America, her native homeland, she's kind of Oprah without the audience when it comes to the cooking. Also, is she kind of, do you think... They saw her as the golden ticket, didn't they, to unlimited revenue, unlimited audiences, and it just hasn't happened.
Look, I think Meghan is a beautiful woman, and I do think she's talented, but I think how you treat people is incredibly important. And not only was she rumored to have been cruel inside Kensington Palace with several bullying allegations, but here in the States, Archwell Productions, their audio section, their scripted section, they've gone through several employees. And I think it's a reflection on the way that people are treated there. And I think as a viewer, you might get that. You might feel that way. And maybe that is where the appeal has been lost.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I thought it was really interesting.
Well, it was interesting because I actually asked him what's the difference between ADHD and bipolar, because, you know, a lot of people, he said there's a crossover.
Yeah.
But with obviously bipolar, you experience huge kind of depression as well. They both have depression. But I think it's fascinating.
Yeah. And I hadn't realised that there is medication if necessary. And, of course, I thought for bipolar that you'd have sort of complete ignorance. I thought perhaps there'd be big scenes and big outbursts of emotion, and me was saying nothing of the sort.
It is interesting, and I think the problem with the diagnosis for these things as well is that a lot of people can use them, and I think that's the issue with all of these exploit these illnesses as well, which is unfortunate, but I think that is something that does happen too. But how do you know? How can you work out whether someone is exploiting the illness or whether someone is truly sick?
Well, I think some of those 2.8 million people who are on...
Well, that's the thing, isn't it?
...sickness benefits are exploiting it. I just don't believe it. I just don't believe it. So many people just did not go back to work after COVID.
Well,
Lots of texts and emails coming in.
Well, we have had a few. Now, we were talking earlier about defence and the fact that Keir Starmer hadn't sort of made a firm commitment as to when the 2.5% of GDP would come in and when they would pay this. And Kevin sent in a message saying Starmer is not going to do anything with the defence budget until the US election. Do you think so? Do you think he's going to wait that long?
Well...
It's a long time. That's November.
Yeah. I mean, John Healey, who's the Defence Secretary, said that there is an ironclad guarantee they'll reach the 2.5% goal but just, again, isn't saying when.
See, that's the thing with the Labour Party. I find in government now, they need to be decisive, they need to be clear, they cannot...
They've transitioned now. They're not in opposition now, where words are easy. Deeds matter now.
Yeah, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly, because they're the boss.
Well, listen, we can bring you live pictures, actually, from Bushy in Hertfordshire, where an urgent manhunt is underway for a 26-year-old man wanted in connection with the triple murder.
Officers are asking the public not to approach Carl Clifford, as police believe he may be carrying a crossbow. If you see him, if you're listening on the radio, we've just got a photograph of him now. He's just 26. He's wanted in connection with the death of 3 women in the same house. Officers were called to Ashling Close in Bushy just before 7 p.m, 1900 hours on Tuesday. They found 3 seriously injured women. They all died at the scene.
Yes, so sad.
Carl Clifford is from the Enfield area.
It's just so sad, isn't it? It's really frightening as well.
Yeah.
So do not approach this man if you see him. Did
we get any more emails?
Yeah, we have one here from Dickie. Dickie was talking about ULEZ, actually. Dickie says ULEZ was supposed to be about cleaner air, but you can still use your polluting vehicle if you pay for it. Sugar tax is about public health, but you can still get obese as long as you pay for it.
Yeah, we are going to talk about sugar tax, actually,
right.
because there is evidence that the number of children with obesity has gone down. It's linked to the sugar tax. I just don't like new taxes, I'm afraid.
I'm not buying it. I don't believe that at all. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's education more so than the tax. And also, I prefer sugar than the things they put in its place. But up next, Donald Trump has challenged US President Joe Biden for another TV debate. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Phil was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
Hi, my name's Phil Cox. I just looked at my account and thought, oh my God, yeah, it's true, it's gone into my account. And if I can win it, anybody can win it.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Martin Daubney. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Morning 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the 10th of July, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Nana Aquia.
So there's a manhunt underway. Police are searching for 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, who's believed to be armed with a crossbow after 3 women from the same family were murdered at a property in Hertfordshire last night.
And are you ready for the 3 lions to roar? England take on the Netherlands in the Euro 2014 semi-final tonight. Spain awaits the winner in the final. Can we do it? Of course we can. Jack Carson is there for us in Dortmund.
Here we are, of course, in Dortmund, where the atmosphere is building. Tens of thousands of Dutch and England fans are making the trip here. Gareth Southgate has his own defensive headache ahead of that game, but we'll bring you all of the news and the latest to that today.
Lucky old Jack, he's there, isn't he? He's on a bit of a jaunt.
Great atmosphere, isn't it?
Not bad, is it? But in other news, Suella Braverman blasts Liberal Tories. Former Home Secretary Suella Braverman says that the progress flag, an updated version of the pride flag, was flown over government buildings as if they were occupied territory. Have a listen.
Well, the progress flag says to me one monstrous thing, that I was a member of a government that presided over the mutilation of our children in our hospitals and from our schools.
Not sure about that. Now, fears over Joe Biden, they won't go away. Democrats worry the US president doesn't have what it takes to win the election. Charlie Peters has more.
A no-holds-barred debate or a round of golf. Trump has set down a new set of challenges to Biden after the president appeared to wobble last night at a speech in Washington.
And the swearing in of MPs in the House of Lords continues today. Some people say that we should ditch this pomp and pageantry so MPs can just get on with the job.
Why would we ditch what people like us for? The pomp, the pageantry. Nobody does it better.
No.
They drag the Speaker literally to the Speaker's chair, because this is all goes back to the days of Charles I when Speakers were imperilled by a king that would close down Parliament whenever it suited him. And it's a nice tradition.
Well, it's lovely. I mean, I went to the Houses of Parliament, and when the Speaker walks through, everyone stands.
They do?
And lets him get there. I mean, come on.
He is one of the most senior commoners in the country.
Otherwise, it would just be boring, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
So at least
it would.
make it interesting. Why not? But as ever, we'd love to hear what you think. Send us your views, post your comments, gbnews.com/your say. But first, here's your news with Sam Francis.
Nana, Andrew, thank you very much, and good morning to you. It's just coming up to 3 minutes past 11, and let's start first with that latest development in the police manhunt ongoing in Hertfordshire this morning, where detectives searching for the suspect in a triple murder case believe he may be armed with a crossbow. Officers are asking the public not to approach 26-year-old Kyle Clifford and to dial 999 immediately if they do see him. These are the live pictures coming to us from the scene in Bushy, where police found 3 women fatally injured at a property on Ashlyn Close. That was just before 7 o'clock last night. It's understood emergency medical crews, including 2 air ambulances, were sent to try to save the women who were related. But sadly, they all died at the scene. Detectives now leading the ongoing search are urging anyone with information or who may have seen something take place between lunchtime and 7 o'clock yesterday evening to come forward on the Hertfordshire Police website or by calling 101. In other news this morning, 2 children from a primary school in Liverpool that's been dealing with an infection outbreak have died. It's understood the children from Milstead Primary School were aged 5 and 6. The UK Health Security Agency, though, says it has been looking into a number of cases of giardia at the school, but experts say it's unlikely that the deaths are related to that outbreak. The Prime Minister is promising a review of the UK's defence and security, which could see the size of the armed forces increase. His manifesto had promised to spend 2.5% of national income on defence. However, he's refused to guarantee the government will meet that promise within his first term. Instead, he's pledging to keep the UK's defences strong without breaking his spending and borrowing rules.
We will carry out our strategic review to look at the challenges, the capabilities, and on the back of that make further plans. I am committed to that 2.5% within our fiscal rules, but that strategic review needs to come first.
And those comments from Sir Keir Starmer, come as he has arrived in Washington for a NATO summit where he's pushing allies to invest more in defence. It's the first time he'll line up with other world leaders as Prime Minister. And opening the NATO summit earlier, US President Joe Biden insisted the alliance is more powerful than ever.
An overwhelming bipartisan majority of Americans understand that NATO makes us all safer. The fact that both Democratic and Republican parties are represented here today is a testament to that fact. The American people know that all the progress we've made in the past 75 years has happened behind the shield of NATO. And the American people understand what would happen if there was no NATO.
Well, Donald Trump is challenging President Biden to a head-to-head debate this week. Speaking at a rally in Florida, Trump offered to face off without moderators and said it would be a chance for Biden to redeem himself. Biden's stumbling performance in the first debate raised concerns among some Democrats, with talk that he could be replaced as their nominee. And Trump described it as the most decisive and overwhelming defeat in the history of presidential debates.
Let's do another debate this week so that Sleepy Joe Biden can prove to everyone all over the world that he has what it takes to be president. But this time it will be man-to-man, no moderators, no holes barred. Just name the place, anytime, anywhere.
Israel says it is looking into reports that almost 30 people have been killed in an airstrike at a refugee camp in southern Gaza. The strike hit a school-turned-shelter, that's according to Palestinian medical officials. However, Israeli forces claim it hit a Hamas fighter from the 7th of October attacks. It comes as advancing tanks in Gaza have now forced thousands to flee as Israel's ground assault continues there. And talks aimed at bringing about a ceasefire in fighting are expected to resume later today. Here, a new study is suggesting that the sugar tax on soft drinks, introduced just over 6 years ago, has led to people consuming significantly less sugar. The Conservative government brought in the rule to tackle obesity and encourage manufacturers to make their products healthier. Researchers who followed nearly 8,000 adults and more than 7,000 children for a year after that tax was introduced found, as I said, sugar consumption dropped. And finally, in sport, thousands of England fans are in Dortmund in Germany ahead of tonight's Euro 2024 semi-final against the Netherlands. But the Brits are expected to be outnumbered by the Dutch. It's thought there could be 4 times more opposition supporters out on the streets tonight, where Gareth Southgate's side are pushing for a place in the final against Spain on Sunday. And he's admitted the squad haven't been at their best, but that they've managed to pull through.
The beginning of the tournament, the expectation weighed quite heavily, and of course the external noise was louder than it's ever been. So I felt we couldn't quite get ourselves in the right place, and in the end, what was impressive was that the players ground it out. They ground results out and found ways to win.
Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you for another update in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sam. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's just coming up to 9 minutes after 11 o'clock. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel. Hello and welcome. I'm Nana Aquia and also Andrew Pierce. It's fun so far. We've got loads still to do, haven't we?
We certainly have. But we're going to go back to this breaking news. This manhunt underway after 3 women were murdered in Hertfordshire. Police say the suspect may have a crossbow, so very much armed and dangerous.
So they're urgently trying to find 26-year-old Kyle Clifford, who is wanted in connection with the incident.
We'll bring the latest as the situation develops. But moving on, President Joe Biden, well, he's welcoming world leaders to Washington, D.C. for the 75th anniversary of the NATO alliance. He's made a speech which seemed pitched at reassuring allies he can fight off a challenge from Donald Trump.
Well, this is as the White House was forced to deny rumours that Biden is being treated for Parkinson's disease. So joining us now is our reporter Charlie Peters and the chair of Republicans overseas, Greg Svensson. Right, I'm going to start with you, Greg. So what's going on? We hear this rumour that somebody's been visiting the White House on a monthly basis, and he's a Parkinson's expert.
Right.
Feels like there is more to this and they're not telling people.
Yeah, you know, the White House logs don't lie. And so why would a Parkinson's expert be visiting the White House? And the story is that he was visiting the White House physician, Joe Biden's personal physician. And just maybe they were talking about some research project or something. It's laughable. It's similar to the cover-up of Biden's cognitive challenges that they've been basically doing for 3 years now with the compliant media. So I don't think it will work. I don't know. I can't confirm that he's got Parkinson's. Of course not. But he obviously has something. I mean, there's no doubt.
His whole manner, his physical gait, he's shaky. I mean, that's a sign. It's a characteristic.
Sure.
It's difficult to stand up completely straight. The confusion.
Yeah.
And if there is... Even if it's some form of dementia, it's a disgraceful cover-up, actually. It's not fair on the man, but it's not fair on the world and the country.
Yeah, it's elder abuse, first of all.
Yeah.
But it's not just... I mean, if he had an accident or something suddenly happened to him, OK, there'd be plenty of sympathy for him. But this was a cover-up that's been going on for 3 years, and especially in the last 6 months. And you can even see versus a year ago the difference. So the cognitive decline is obvious. And look, before the debate, 65% of Americans didn't think he had the cognitive ability to continue. And now it's 80. So it's not like people bought into the media cover-up. But, you know, it's shameful that the inner circle, as well as the compliant media, did this to the American people. It's election interference for the most part.
Right? Even anyone with half a brain would look at him, even at the beginning of his term, and actually even the one before that, could see that he is not fit for office. And I don't know why everyone's pretending. They've been pretending for years.
And now they act surprised.
Exactly.
Is it because they're so horrified at the thought of replacing him with Kamala Harris, the vice president?
Yeah.
Is that what the problem is?
She's been the best insurance for Biden. Right, because they knew that no one would proceed, let's say, with an impeachment or the 25th Amendment, knowing that Kamala is in the chair and would take over. So
is she really that bad?
She is that bad. She polls below Biden in terms of approval ratings. She's only gotten a little bit of a lift in the last week because people saw how bad Biden is. So now Kamala Harris is getting a little support in the polls versus Trump. So she's now running better against Trump than Biden is.
Because it'd be difficult if they do dump him. Don't they have to go to the black woman vice president? It would look pretty bleak.
Yeah, I mean, they made a mistake, obviously, with the diversity hire in 2020. But I would argue that DEI peaked in 2020. If they're smart, they'll choose the best candidate. If Kamala's the best candidate, great, but I don't think she is. But she's well positioned. You know, because she's vice president, because she's sort of was appointed as the heir in 2020. So she is in a good position. Her polling is improving. I hope she's the candidate. I would prefer Biden because he'd, guarantee to lose. But I would think Kamala is the second best bet for the Republican cause.
What is going to happen, though?
I have no idea.
Because I say, look, don't ask me, I don't flip it.
This is
it's
uncharted territory.
To call British politics.
Here's the clear point here is that only Joe Biden can decide. He cannot be forced from running. He cannot be forced out of office. The 25th Amendment is very complicated. It has to be initiated by his own cabinet. And so no one wants to kill the king. And so, and then in terms of, other mechanisms for removal, there really aren't any. So that he's got the delegates, and again, that was part of the scam. They covered up for him. So even though he won all these elections, these primary elections, that was pretty deliberate election interference.
I think it's ridiculous that anyone should have even thought about him doing that. Charlie, where do you stand on this?
Well, I'm a reporter, I don't stand on it at all. But last night, watching all of the events that we had screened from the US, we had the White House press secretary giving an update on President Biden's health, and she struggled because the entire conversation, all of the questions were on that. Not a single question was on the terms and the framing that President Biden wanted. And then an hour later, he gave this speech opening the NATO summit where he struggled tremendously. There has been no shortage of conversation about how President Biden does not attend press conferences, public press conferences, what his press secretary is referring to as big boy press conferences, where he receives questions from reporters. He's having one tomorrow. At least 3 correspondents will attend that. He only speaks with teleprompters, generally, and last night he had a 5-minute speech to get through. He stumbled through a few sentences, but most troublingly, when the Secretary-General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, was stood beside him, he was there to offer him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And instead of looking at the Secretary-General, his eyes were tied so closely to the teleprompter, he addressed him while looking away from him. And then he read out an instruction. He said, invite the military on stage. He didn't pause and then deliver that naturally. And then also, you know, as he was walking off, the cameras tied tightly to his exit. There is this feeling now that an omerta has broken, and the press, who have for many years dodged this situation quite carefully, are now forced to admit that the situation is not as it should be. And then after that, within an hour of that finishing, we then had Donald Trump's big rally in Florida, his first since that disastrous debate for Biden on the 27th of June, in which he challenged him to a round of golf and a no-holds-barred debate. Many commentators thought that Trump actually held back in that debate in the end of June, perhaps because he doesn't want to give the American people a sense of pity, looking at someone being brutalised in the way that Trump often does.
Also, less is more. With
I also think Trump's not a fool. He didn't need to say anything. He didn't need to be critical. People could see for themselves how badly he's doing.
He was very disciplined, partly because the format actually helped Trump, even though it was Biden's choice and his staff's choice to have those kind of guidelines. It benefited Trump because it kept him focused and it kept him disciplined. But I think he did it as well on purpose. The campaign has been much more disciplined. You know, he does have a few cracks, you know, but
how embarrassing! Invite them on military on the stage. I mean, just if it's not on the auto cue, he can't do it.
It looked terrible, and it's worth stressing they haven't got much time if they want to replace him. This convention is soon. They've got a matter of weeks if they're going to move. Last night, I mean, just before he gave that speech, another Democratic congressperson came forward and said, we need to get rid of him. Reportedly, the news from the Hill is that others are saying that in private, but you have at least a handful now in public saying we need to get rid of our president. That's an unprecedented move.
Well, the only way to do it is he has to do it.
The First Lady's got to tell him.
No, she's not going to tell him. Jill's having such a great time.
She's enjoying
you remember seeing her on the stage saying, and you answered every question, Jill. Oh, my God. Listen, thank you so much, Charlie Peters, and also Greg Sanson. Really good to talk to you both. Still to come, members are being sworn in at the House of Lords and the House of Commons today. No other business will take place in this period, and some say that we should ditch this pomp. What do you think? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
No one wants their child to be a fussy eater. But what is the secret to expanding your child's culinary horizons?
Is there a way to get kids away from the kids' menu, the fish fingers, the chips? Joining us now is the UK's top-selling author of children's cookery books, Annabelle Carmel. Good morning, Annabelle.
Thank you. So lovely to be here.
So, first of all, what's the issue with kids just having the traditional easy meals like fish fingers, you know, chips, beans?
It really depends if they've got preservatives in them, if they're full of salt. So I like to make them myself, and it's really easy. So I make my own chicken glazed nuggets, and super easy to make using proper pieces of chicken. You can cook them in the air fryer now, which is absolutely brilliant, so you need to fry them. And I think that it's really important that children grow up loving good food, because they make their minds up by the age of 5 what they like and what they don't like. And it's quite difficult to change their minds after that. But it's good to know that fussy eating is genetic. It's not to do with your cooking.
Oh,
that's not to say that you can't do something about it. So I've written many, many books, and I have an app with 1,000 recipes on it and a lot of how to make your own junk food, how to make your own ice lollies out of fresh fruit.
Yes.
How to make your own pizzas. I make the most amazing homemade pizza. I actually brought you some cookies here.
So these are your books here. So my first cookbook, that's for how old children?
That's from the age of 1.
OK, and you've got a weaning one at the end, the baby one?
Yes, that's my very first book. I lost my first child. It was really sad. She died at the age of 3 months. And my second child was the world's worst eater. And I wrote that book as my legacy to Natasha, never thinking that it would start a whole career.
Oh, bless you.
It sold millions of copies and it's still popular.
Is it quite pivotal and important that you introduce kids to the weaning stage, or, you know, how important?
It's very important because the processed weaning food in pouches or jars, it's heated, so a lot of the vitamins aren't there anymore, so making your own is so easy and much cheaper.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
(11:20). This is Britain's Newsroom, live across the United Kingdom with Andrew Pearce and Anna Queer. The panel are back. Broadcasting journalist Mike Parry and the former Labour MP Stephen Pound in studio. Seeing the MPs, Stephen, swearing their allegiance to the King now, of course, does it make you nostalgic?
Well, it's a strange feeling. I remember when I came in '97, Tony Banks was in front of me.
I remember Tony.
Tony Banks crossed his fingers.
Behind his back.
Behind his back. And I tried to dissociate myself from
What, because he was a Republican?
Yeah. And do you see Jeremy Corbyn yesterday, who got re-elected? He actually said in one of those big stage whistles, isn't this a nonsense or something?
Yeah, he did, yeah.
You know, you either respect the institution or you don't. If you want to be part of it, be part of it properly.
Yeah. And he has been part of it for 45 years.
Yeah. Oh, I think so. He should know his way around there.
Yeah.
No, the interesting thing is the maiden speeches, because when I came in '97, we had a majority of 179. So we were hoping for one more, so we go for 180, but unfortunately we couldn't. And I didn't make my maiden speech till November because there was such a long queue.
We all still remember it, Stephen, so well.
Well, most people have forgotten it quite rightly.
Were you nervous? Was it like an occasion? Did it, you know, sort of? Did you feel? You know?
Well, it's just...
Well, not really.
Oh, come on now. I mean, you would have absolutely stormed it, no trouble at all. But when you're there, 600 people in front of you, and every single one of them wants you to fail.
No,
because the only way to succeed in politics is to go above somebody. No, it's a very, very hard place to actually make an impression. And it's a very easy place to make enemies. And it's also very, very difficult to actually get a reputation. My mistake I made was I made a funny maiden speech. Absolutely fatal. Absolutely immediate.
Why? Nobody took you seriously?
No, nobody. Not to this day, they don't.
I know. So you think, yeah.
It's a bit hard.
What do you think, Mike, though? Because it's almost like closure and then an opening of a new chapter when we have these ceremonies. I think it's important.
Well, do you know what? I mean, I'm a Conservative with a small c, and I thought it was a mistake to call the election when it did. But then, after the election now, I'm glad it happened because the House of Commons I've seen now does not represent the House of Commons that I want to run this country. But I sincerely believe now it will focus people's minds. And I think it's going to be so badly run for the next 5 years, it will only be 5 years. I'm pretty convinced of that. Because also, I think the opposition to the present government have now got to bang their heads together. And, for instance, we've never had alliances in this country like they've had in Europe. Can we have an alliance of Conservatives and Reform to present a solid and, you know, efficient alternative to what's going on?
We'll see when the votes come in on individual votes. We'll just to see whether the 5 Reform people will vote with the government. And don't forget, there's also 5 independents, sort of pro-Gaza people.
Yeah.
Now, what sort of a service are they going to give their constituents if you get elected overwhelmingly on a pro-Palestinian, you know, pro-Gaza issue? So, you know, if somebody's going to come to their MP and complain about potholes so they can't get their kid into school, it's not going to be told, well, you know, Israel is so-and-so's. And it's going to be very, very difficult. But let's see. I mean, I don't think that the 5 Reform are going to prop up the Conservative government. I don't think they're going to...
In terms of opposition? I mean, Conservative opposition.
Yeah, but not in
14 years.
Yeah. But not in their present form. I totally agree, and that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the shakedown now in the Tory party will be influenced by the fact that there are five Republicans. And on the other one, by the way, Stephen, it's sectarian politics now. We've got to accept there is sectarian politics, and I don't think any constituent in any of what you might now call the sectarian political constituencies would expect the person represented in the Commons to be interested in potholes. They're only interested in Gaza.
But isn't it the most powerful person in the Conservative Party at the moment is Nigel Farage? Because when they come to choose their new leader, if Nigel Farage actually says to the Conservative members, if you vote for this person, we're going to stand against you, or if you vote for, say, for Kemi Badenoch, we won't stand against you.
I totally agree.
There's no way that the Conservatives in the country would not go along with that. No, because they know that if Nigel Farage stands against them again, then they are absolutely done.
Well, but they're also going to cause huge problems for your parties too, Stephen, because they were second in 93, 94 seats.
And I've never denied.
And in some seats, it's barely 1,000 votes where Labour had.
I've never denied.
The Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, 1,000 votes. That's all her majority is.
Well, at one stage, we were genuinely worried about Yvette Cooper. Yeah. And we also worried about... In Barnsley, we nearly lost, There's a whole range of seats we did. No, I've always said that, we are, in the Labour Party, we shouldn't stand back and applaud the Reform taking votes from the Tories. It's a two-way street.
I think you make a mistake if you think that Reform would want to taint themselves with the Tory brand right now. Yeah. I don't think they would. No, why would you? You wouldn't. I mean, the Tory brand is so embarrassing.
I don't think they will. But as Steve's already pointed out, if Farage says, I can do business with this person, then there are signs of a right-wing alliance. Yeah. And what that will mean is that Reform will have to water down some of what they're doing, and the Tories will have to strengthen what they're doing. And I can see that happening over the next 5 years and are coming together. Because remember, only 1 in 5 people of voting age in this country have voted for the Keir Starmer government.
Well, what Reform are doing at the moment is quite interesting. I mean, I've been talking... I know quite a few people in Reform. They're concentrating entirely on local government now. They're all their efforts, all their energies, and don't forget, they get a fair bit of money now, what we call short money. The money that goes to anybody with more than 5 MPs. They are trying to build up a power base in local government exactly the same way that Paddy Ashdown and the Liberals did it. Get a few councillors elected, spread it out, and then you have the donut effect, then you start to win more seats. They will be doing that. Watch out for a lot of Reform activity at ground level in parishes and councils.
I think you're right as well, and I actually think that Reform will become the second party, not the Conservatives, and actually it will be the Conservatives who will need to be part of Reform, and I think some of the Conservative MPs may become Reform MPs instead.
No, I agree.
Some of them are looking at the membership already.
What people like is a strong leader. That's why Mrs Thatcher was so successful so long. They might not have liked her policies, but they saw this woman stand up, speak her mind, not trying to second-guess the constituents and tell them the way it's going to go. Farage may be many things, but he's a strong leader.
Yes, he is.
And people can gravitate towards him.
Now, what do you think about this one? Kemi Badenoch, the Shadow Housing Secretary, who is expected to run in the Tory leadership contest, used the first Shadow Cabinet meeting to say that Mr Sunak's decision to call an early election without first informing the Cabinet was a mistake. And she said it bordered on unconstitutional.
Well, a period of silence on her part would be very, very welcome.
Well, I'd say that for all Tories, actually. I think we don't need to have many of them.
A house divided unto itself will not stand. The problem is, all this does is reinforce the image of the Conservatives ripping shreds.
Yes, totally agree.
A divided rabble.
It looks terrible.
It
does.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say, I thought Rishi Sunak's departing speech was so appropriate.
I agree. Gracious, I think. Dignified, gracious.
So appropriate, gracious, humble, and, I've no shame in being leader of the opposition. It's a vital role in this country. That's basically what he said. And I think, compare that with the way Kemi Badenoch has now decided to rip into him. I don't think it's good style at all.
I also think it's inappropriate to attack your leader from abroad.
Exactly.
She's in Washington, in a sense, she's representing Britain in a way.
Yes.
I know they're not in government now.
Yes, but very bad style.
And also, to talk about... what was the expression she used about children? What was she said the girls
do? That was Braverman.
Braverman in her flag. Yeah. But she was talking about
brutalised and all this mutilated children.
But isn't it interesting? The Shadow Cabinet is quite small now, but it's still leaked. So did Badenoch leak this story? Because this is all about her leadership campaign. I told Rishi, I told him what for. I'm told she didn't utter a word of criticism when he announced the election was on July the 4th.
Right.
Two ministers criticised it. One was Esther McVeigh.
Right.
And the other one was...
James Cleverly.
No, it was the outgoing Northern Ireland Secretary, Chris Heaton-Harris. Cleverly had been told the night before and thought, well, there'll be a proper debate in Cabinet about it, only to be told by Rishi Sunak, well, I've already told the King.
He's been to see the King.
Done.
Yeah.
How on earth do you know these things? What contacts do you have that could actually have that information revealed to you?
I talk to people.
Well, that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Esther McVey, of course, is back, and
she's
that's
back.
a very good thing because I think
she's a proper Tory.
Exactly. And
back on GBNews.
Yeah, and it would have been wicked if she lost her seat because she's a Brexiteer. And the irony is, of course, with what Reform did, and I can see why people voted him in large numbers, some really, really hardline Brexiteers lost their seat because Reform took so many votes from them, and a Lib Dem won, and they want to take us back in the wretched EU.
I wonder why Jeremy Hunt has decided not to stand. I would have thought that he would have been in quite a strong position because he kept his seat against a ferocious onslaught from the Liberal Party.
He didn't hardly get any support when he went for leadership of the Conservative Party. He's not going to get support now.
More of the same wishy-washy.
Exactly.
Not
wishy-washy.
But that's Stephen Pound all over, Mike. Wishy-washy, Stephen Pound, wishy-washy. Perfect role in a pantomime. I think they should...
Wishy-washy. Are you Widow Twanky?
I think they should have a caretaker leader and pick a leader next year.
Yeah, no, I don't think next year. I think that's too far away. Well, certainly a caretaker leader now. But what they've got...
Ian Duncan Smith. Give it to Ian Duncan Smith over the summer.
David Davis.
Maybe before the party conferences in October.
Or at party conference.
I would give it to Ian Duncan Smith because he was such an effective welfare minister. He was cutting the welfare bill, literally, getting people back into work.
I think the important there was... OK, thank you very much, Mike Parry, and also to you. Love to see you soon.
Neither of us are standing, by the way.
But time
not
now
yet. Not yet.
for your news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good morning to you. It's just after 11:30, and we'll start with the latest developments from Hertfordshire, where police are continuing to try to track down the suspect in a triple murder case. Police believe he may be armed with a crossbow. Officers are asking the public not to approach 26-year-old Carl Clifford and to dial 999 immediately if they see him. These are the live pictures coming to us from the scene in Bushy, where you can see there police cordons, police tape, multiple officers and police cars. That very quiet and residential street has been described by many residents who live there as an incident that is tragic and disturbing. Earlier we saw as well blue and white forensic tents in the front garden of one of those homes. Police there found 3 women fatally injured at a property on Ashland Close. That was just before 7 o'clock last night. It's understood those women were related, and as I say, detectives leading that search now are urging anyone with information to come forward by visiting the Hertfordshire Police website or by calling 101. 2 children aged 5 and 6 have died amid an infection outbreak at a Liverpool primary school. Milstead Primary School, which caters for those with special educational needs, is currently dealing with an outbreak of Giardia. That's a stomach infection. The outbreak is being overseen by the UK Health Security Agency, and the head teacher of that school has said her entire community is devastated by the deaths of the 2 young children who filled their classes with joy. The Prime Minister has refused to guarantee that the government will meet his promise to spend 2.5% of national income on defence within his first term. He says it will only happen when it can be done within the rules he set on spending and borrowing. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer's in Washington today for a NATO summit to mark 75 years of the military alliance. And Ukraine is high on the agenda, with more aid already promised. And the Ukrainian president, though, won't be joining the NATO summit while the fighting continues in his country, though leaders there will agree a statement promising Ukraine an irreversible path towards membership. Here, a study has found the sugar tax imposed on fizzy drinks has led to a significant drop in sugar in people's diets. The tax came into force in April 2018, designed to encourage manufacturers to change their ingredients. 12 months later, children were found to be consuming nearly 5 grams less sugar per day, while for adults it was 11 grams less. And in sport, the build-up is beginning for thousands of fans in Dortmund today. The squad of England football team are facing the Netherlands this evening in the second semi-final of Euro 2024. Though manager Gareth Southgate has admitted his team haven't been at their best, but they've managed to pull through. And the winners in tonight's game will take on Spain in the final on Sunday. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you for another update at midday.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
And here's a quick look at the markets this morning. The pound will buy you $1.2803 and €1.1838. The price of gold this hour, £1,853.91 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,185 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? Stay tuned there, because Good Afternoon Britain with Tom and Emily is next. What's coming up?
Goodness me, so much news, both domestic and overseas.
Yes, as you may have heard, you will have heard, this manhunt now ongoing in Bushy, north of London. Pretty shocking detail that we know so far. The suspect, we know the name Carl Clifford. That's who the police are looking for. Public being warned that he may have a crossbow with him. 3 women have died and he is the prime suspect. So this manhunt going on will be there.
And 2 air ambulances have now been dispatched from the east of England to get there. So it could be that there are more people injured. We just don't know. And of course, a very dangerous individual is on the loose.
Really bad. Really
Incredibly terrifying for people who live in Bushy and everyone, really, the public at large. Also, of course, we're going to be following Sir Keir Starmer around Washington, seeing what he's up to. This defence spending, it's not going away, is it? He's going to have to commit to a timeline.
This idea that it takes a year to do a review, when we talked to military experts in the show, said you can do it in 6 weeks.
We've done so many reviews. We've done so many reviews.
What I find quite interesting is how we seem to have, hook, line and sinker, redefined what a cast iron guarantee means. I was given to understand that a cast iron guarantee meant that you're going to do something. Now, there's a cast iron guarantee that defence spending will go to 2.5% of GDP, but the Prime Minister can't say it will be this year, can't say it will be next year, can't say it will be within the Parliament.
Well, I was just about to say,
utterly meaningless.
Is it going to be within even this Parliament?
If you can't even say that by the end of this Parliament, that's 5 years away. If you can't even say by then that we'll be at 2.5%, how on earth is that a cast iron guarantee?
I thought we had so many non-doms to tax that we'd be able to pay for all of this.
We know who calls all the shots. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor of the Exchequer.
Fiscal
she calls
rules.
all the shots. She tells him what he can and can't spend money on.
Also, what do you make of Elisa Nandy, our new Culture Secretary's comments that now the era of the culture wars is over and I'm going to be Miss Sensible and bring everyone together and it's all going to be wonderful?
What does she mean?
Can you really say that the culture wars is over? Is that within your gift? Just because you're Culture Secretary, you can decide that now we're not going to disagree on anything?
Well, we shall find
Brave
out.
New Dawn.
Brave New Dawn.
Keep saying it.
Well, as long as they can make some decisions, because obviously what they did in opposition is not going to work as they lead the country. Emily and Tom, we shall see you very shortly. All that and more at midday. But up next, a sugar tax on soft drinks has worked wonders on children's sugar intake. Has it really? Should we tax more unhealthy foods? This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Don't want any more taxes.
I'm sick of tax.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to your latest GB News weather update brought to you from the Met Office. Rain and showers for many of us. There will be a dry weather across southern areas and it won't feel too bad in any sunshine, but low pressure is still pushing away to the north and east of the UK, bringing with it some weather front outbreaks of quite heavy rain. We do have weather warnings in force, particularly for northeastern areas of Scotland and for thunderstorms across northern parts of England later on this afternoon. And that's where we'll see the heaviest rain through the rest of the day into parts of Northern Ireland too. Further south, it should stay relatively dry. Some sunshine developing, particularly across the south coast. Highs of 23 or 22 degrees for many areas of the south and east, but down into the mid-teens still across the far north. So quite a disappointing day up here once again. Into this evening, that rain's going to persist, particularly across the Moray coast of Scotland. Further west, it will be a little bit drier through the rest of the evening. Across parts of Northern Ireland, though, heavy outbreaks of rain still to come through this evening. We've still got that continued risk of thunderstorms across parts of northern England as well. But a drier end to the day across the south. Wimbledon should stay dry through much of the day as well, and not feeling too bad in the sunshine still into the evening as well. Now, overnight, we've still got that low pressure with us. It's not moving anywhere too quickly, so that means further outbreaks of rain. Quite a lot of cloud around for many areas of the UK, staying clearer, though, across the south. But this drizzly rain will continue to push into parts of northern England, North Wales, some central areas of England as well. It'll be quite a misty start to the day tomorrow as well for these areas, with that drizzly rain persisting through much of Thursday. As I said, though, it will be brighter across the south, so a bit of sunshine to start the day through Thursday, but the cloud will increase through the day from the north. I think not quite reaching the south coast through much of the day, so again, quite a bright and dry day, but we could see some quite heavy showers breaking out for many central areas, and temperatures in the high teens, possibly the lower 20s in the best of the sunshine.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
An order.
It's 11:41. Britain's Newsroom, GB News, Andrew Pearce, and the fabulous Nana Akua.
Thank you, Andrew. Right, let's return though to our breaking news story. A manhunt is underway after 3 women were murdered in Hertfordshire, in Bushy, as police say the suspect may have a crossbow.
So they're urgently trying to find the 26-year-old known as Kyle Clifford. He's wanted in connection with the incident. If you're listening on the radio, we've got a photograph of him here. Bearded guy, 26, 3 ambulances. We think some of them are air ambulances, a rapid response vehicle, an ambulance officer vehicle, and the Essex Air and Hearts Air Ambulance are all now were sent to the scene, which may suggest, potentially, there are more people injured. Because the 3 women were they were injured. They were seriously injured when the police got to the house, but then they were died. The Home Secretary Vet Cooper has released a statement. It's unusual getting used to saying that, isn't it? Home Secretary Vet Cooper.
Oh, yes, on X, formerly Twitter, she said the loss of 3 women's lives in Bushy last night is really shocking. My thoughts are with the family and friends of those who have been killed and with the community. I am being kept fully updated. I urge people to support with any information about this case.
So we will, of course, keep you up to date on that throughout the day here on GB News. Now, moving on, the sugar tax was brought in 6 years ago, and some say, not us, but some are arguing it's led to a massive drop in sugar in people's diet.
I don't know. I feel like they're saying this so they can carry on taxing us more. Children are consuming about a teaspoon of sugar less a day, and adults 2 teaspoons lower.
So are we moving in the right direction? Not a nation of fatsos, because we are fatsos for much longer. The former presenter of Fat Families, Steve Miller, joins us now. Steve, look, you've got to convince me, good morning to you, that the sugar tax is responsible for this, because I'm one who I don't like new taxes. When you give a government a tax, all they do is tax you more and more and more and more. Is this the reason, perhaps, that people are having less sugar?
Let's get down to brass tacks here. OK, so there's been a little bit of a reduction. There has not been a big reduction in childhood obesity and adult obesity. That's the first thing to say. And I am very anti this tax, because what happens is it's basically saying that the responsible people pay for the irresponsible people who can't be bothered to think before they put something into the trolley. That's my first point. The second point here, though, is I think the aim of the sugar tax on drinks, soft drinks, was very much about dentistry and, children and stuff. The thing, where we're going with that is that the government are now saying that teachers, it's going to be a teacher's responsibility to make sure, because dressing gown Karen and dressing gown Keith can't be bothered to get the kids to brush their teeth in the morning. So it's going to be a teacher's job. I say no to that. And the thing is, when you get down the tax route, you see, Denmark tried a fat tax and it was a complete disaster, and it increased inflation. So I'm no economist, but my common sense tells me that if you're going to start adding tax on food, we're going to have food inflation. So what's the solution? The solution is, and I can't see it coming up under this Labour government at all, because they're into all this political correctness and let's all hug each other. So, but the solution is we get stronger, we get tougher. And what you do is common sense says, what country has the lowest obesity rates? What are they doing that we're not? Perhaps we should do something like them. Japan, 5% obesity rate. What is it in the UK? It's in the mid-20s. But why won't we go down that route? Because we're softies and we're going to live in woke wonderland, as I call it now. So there's not a hope of that happening. In Japan, of course, what they do there is the employers measure people's waist and they're ballsy enough to say, oi, you're becoming a bit porky, sort it out, and people do. Kids walk to school. Do you know in Japan, the kids even clean the school? Yeah, they do. And they've got this culture where they don't all moan about, oh, you're fat shaming me, you know, talking about this. They get on with it. They've got balls in Japan. What have we got here? Tiny ones.
Well, do you know, the other thing is that these replacement things that they're putting in there is, because I'm still laughing at that, the thing that they're putting in there instead of sugar may also have its own consequences as well. And that's not fair for people like me who can control myself. I'm now being forced to drink my ginger beer or ginger ale with some other additive in there rather than sugar, which could have other consequences, which may not be obesity, but neurological consequences that they still probably aren't sure about. So that's my issue with it. Is that not a problem?
Yeah, so, and what you do, you use common sense. And you think, OK, if people can't understand the additives and what's in it, what you do is you make the warning labels on these foods and these drinks much simpler to understand. So you have a 1 backside if it's healthy, you have a 2 backside if it's not too healthy, and you have 3 backsides on it if it's likely to make you a porker. And that's where we've got to get. We've got to use common sense and look at countries where they do it well. But here in the UK, as I've said earlier, we're now in woke wonderland.
Well, we are, but, you know, the manufacturers are sneaky as well, because on the packaging, I mean, look, I'm going to ask you, I mean, panela, sugar or not sugar? Panela, rapadura, and turbinado.
Blimey.
They're all sugar. And if that's on the packaging, which they can write it on there, we don't know it's sugar.
Yes, and I take your point on that. That what we have to do is make it simpler. We have to adopt we have to bring in, should I say, a simplicity strategy, and not worry about hurting people's feelings all the time, about telling them straight that they are responsible for their weight, they're responsible for their body, and yes, if you are a parent, you are responsible for your children, not the teachers when it comes to cleaning the teeth of the kids.
Steve, I've got a new job for you. Can you become the Labour government's new Secretary of State for Health?
Oh, he'd be great, wouldn't he? Thank you very much, Steve. Really good to talk to you. That's Steve Miller.
I think he'd be great.
Presenter for Fat Families.
My P45 would be coming very quickly with this one. God, I'm dreading it, seriously. Yeah. I've got very quickly the word fat. I bet they ban the word fat. That'll be next.
Yeah, I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it. Steve, great to talk to you. Oh, it's still to come. Who's going to win the Euros? We're going to be joined by England star Phil Foden's sidekick. We're serious. Next, this is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain. Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast.
6 a.m.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a.m. 6 a
question is...
Should our museums stay free for everyone and anyone, or should we be charging our tourists?
So many of the artefacts are from around the world, stolen actually. I think it's almost to add insult to injury to ask people to pay to see the artefacts that were taken without their permission. One of the things that the museum set itself up for is a kind of World Heritage where you can see the stuff they took from your country free of charge. Because the British state's willing to do that, is one of the reasons why we hold on to many of the artefacts from around the world instead of giving them back.
I mean, that's a noble argument, Wayman, but none of the other countries in the world that also contain artefacts from all over the world indulge in that, do they? We still have to pay to see anything that's come from the UK that might be overseas?
No, but the absolute truth is that we've stolen a lot more over many more years than anybody else, because we're a very, very, we had a very, very big empire, and during that time, taking things from other countries without their permission.
And I think our wonderful country, the United Kingdom, is the cradle of modern civilization, not of the ancient world, but of the modern world. You know, for centuries, we've contributed things to the world, which has spread out around the world, and the influence that we've put upon countries around the globe has been massively significant. I think it's a privilege for people to be able to come to this country and track the history of our country through our museums. I can't understand why they've ever been free. The upkeep of museums runs into hundreds of millions of pounds a year. Somebody's got to maintain them and keep them good. Somebody's got to go around the world and collect the artifacts which are in our museums. And I've always had the adage in life, if something is free, it's probably not worth having.
The People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Come on, England. I made Nana wear the hat. She's taken one for the team. She's wearing the City hat. I'm wearing the shirt for only the first time since I left school. I'm wearing a football shirt. Come on, England.
Do you know what, Andrew? When we were standing at the wall, somebody sent a message in for you. I just wanted to read this. Danny said this. It's quite funny, actually. He said, "Is Andrew standing on a box? I saw him years ago at a tube station on my way to work, and he's a small guy, about 5'5".
No, I'm 5'9" 3/4.
He's 5'9" 3/4 there.
Not quite 5'10".
Not quite 5.
Those 3/4 matter.
Yeah, they do indeed. Now, listen, our boys are taking on the Netherlands tonight in the semi-finals of the Euros in Germany. So joining us now is psychic medium Chloe Smith, who star England midfielder Phil Foden paid a visit to before flying out to Germany. I bet you never saw me wearing an England T-shirt coming. That's your bit of script, actually.
Yeah. What we want to know is, what have you seen in the stars, and what did you tell Phil? Is it going to be OK tonight?
I've got my fingers crossed. It's going to be a hell of a game. So there's a lot of luck on the side for the team. We've got this far, so we don't want to give up just yet, do we? So fingers crossed, we're going to get there.
But you've not quite answered the question there. What have you seen in the stars or in your cards?
Well, I got a lot of luck on the side, so I think we're going to pull it through, yes.
Right. Have you got a score, potentially?
I can't give scores just because I'm exclusive to the Sun at the moment, so I can't really say scores, but I can tell you that we're going to push it through.
OK, so is there a... Do we score a goal? That's it. And how many?
Or is it penalties?
Another one. Or is it penalties? Does it go to penalties?
I think it'll go to penalties, yes.
She said it goes to penalties.
Oh, my God, we can't put the nation through that again.
Oh, it's so emotional.
How many footballers talk to people like you, talk to mediums?
So I did a reading for Becca, which is Phil's partner. I did a reading for her. She reached out to me, so I do a lot of readings for celebrities worldwide. I treat them like normal individuals. We're all human. We all have emotions. We all have feelings. So obviously I did a reading for Becca, and Phil really, really wanted a reading, so I did one for him, and
wow.
yeah, it was just before the Euros.
Well, listen, Chloe, she says it goes into penalties. Thank you, Chloe Smith. That's it from Britain's Newsroom.
Come on, England.
Come on.
Up next, Good afternoon, Britain, with Tom and Emily. Nana will be glued to the football. I'll make sure I know what's happening, that's for sure. I really want them to win. 2-1, my prediction. 2-1 to England.
Yes, coming up on the show, a massive manhunt is underway in Hertfordshire, in leafy Bushy, after 3 women were found dead in a leafy suburb. The prime suspect, the public is being warned that he may well be carrying a crossbow. We'll be live on the scene.
And we'll be live in Washington, D.C., where Keir Starmer is in hot water over defence spending commitments. All that after your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning, time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. For many of us, it's a drier day today, but one major exception to that will be northeast Scotland, where the rain set in overnight and will continue throughout today. We have a Met Office yellow warning in place. Further rain to come over parts of southwest Scotland and Northern Ireland. For a good chunk of England and Wales, though, it is largely dry. A few showers for Wales and northwest England. Any showers in the south pretty well scattered. We should see some bright or even sunny spells coming through here, which may lift temperatures up to 22 or 23. Further north, we are some 10 degrees lower. A cool and very wet day across northern Scotland, 12 or 13 at best. And as I said, that rain continuing, likely to cause some problems as the rain builds up through the day. 50 to 70 millimetres of rain in places. A lot of spray and surface water on the roads for this evening's rush hour here. The rain easing a little across southwest Scotland, and much of the central belt will be dry for most of the day. We will continue to see some outbreaks of rain for Northern Ireland, again particularly along the north coast. Showers pretty well scattered across England and Wales, and some late sunshine across the southeast. By and large a fine evening here for watching the football, but the rain will continue in northeast Scotland through the evening, and that Met Office yellow warning remains in place until midnight. The breeze coming down from the north here as well, but elsewhere the wind's fairly light, some clearer skies across the south, but generally enough cloud to keep those temperatures up in double digits. On to Thursday's weather, and we'll finally see things turning a bit drier over northeast Scotland. Maybe not from dawn, still some rain likely here, but it'll trickle southwards, so we'll see things turning a bit wetter across Edinburgh down towards Newcastle. A few scattered showers across central parts of England and Wales, but again much of the south looking dry and bright, and a drier day for Northern Ireland. Some sunshine developing later tomorrow across northern Scotland. Still on the cool side, warmer further south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Summer could be a scorcher, with your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. It's totally tax-free, which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the